Part of the very fabric of my conscience. With that hope, determination in mind, let us all take a moment to observe the precepts. And in order to do so, please repeat after me. Buddham saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Saranaгаmanang sampunnang, Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Kāmesu micchāchārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Suramera majjapamā datthāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Tisaranena sadding panchasilang dhammang sadhukhang surakkitang katva appamadena sampadeta. Okay, you may now all be seated. Most venerable members of the Mahasangha, members of the audience, as well as our listeners listening in online. Let us now take this moment to invite all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead to join us. Let us offer them this opportunity to witness this meritorious deed, to rejoice in the merits that we are about to acquire, in the hope that may, through the power of these merits, if any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may these merits help them to redeem themselves from those woeful planes and be born in blissful planes. And for all those beings in the blissful planes, may these merits help them to fulfill their path in the Dhamma. May they be able to join us, listen to this sermon, understand it, comprehend it, and be able to attain the noble attainments. Let us take this opportunity to repay our debts to all those beings that we have come past in samsara. In this infinitely long journey, we have had countless mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, so on and so forth. There is not a single being who has not been a mother to us or a father to us. It is now the best opportunity for us to repay those debts that we owe them, as there is no gift that excels the gift of Dhamma. And this is the gift that we are now about to expound for the benefit of all sentient beings. So therefore, as I now make this invitation, I request you to extend that invitation in your hearts and in your minds out to all those beings, all sentient beings, wherever they may be in these 10,000 world systems. Anyone and everyone who may be able to listen to this sermon, may they join us. May they witness this meritorious deed and rejoice in the merits we are about to acquire. And may they all be able to listen to this sermon and redeem themselves from the shackles of samsara. Samanta chakravalesu ata sadhammang munirajansa sunantu sagga mokkhadan Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta. And also before we commence, let us all take a moment to acknowledge with humility and humbleness that although our lives have now changed, as the Dhamma has touched our lives, before the Dhamma entered our lives, we are not the people who we are today. And you will know this for yourselves, each and every one of you. If you look back into your history, look back into who you used to be. You're not who you used to be. You are very different people before the Dhamma came into your lives. And if that is the case in this birth, then consider for a moment how you might have conducted yourself in this infinitely long journey in samsara, where virtually all our associations would have been with ignoble, immoral people. Ignoble, immoral associations which defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion. And having been blinded with avidya and tanha, ignorance and attachment, countless will be the times where we'll have offended, abused, desecrated and insulted the noble ones, the Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagami, Sakurdagami, Sotapannas, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana. For any words, thoughts or actions of abuse or slander or desecration we might have directed towards them, the results of those actions are that today it blocks our progress in the Dhamma, it hinders our progress in the Dhamma. So, before we commence this sermon, let us all take a moment to humbly and with humility in our hearts accept that this is who we used to be. Be regretful for those actions, words and thoughts of slander and abuse that we will have directed towards the noble ones, and take a moment to seek their forgiveness before we commence this sermon. And finally, before we commence, let us all make a firm resolve that may through the course of this sermon, if there are any gaps in your understanding, in your comprehension, which have kept you thus far from attaining the states of Sotapanna, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill those gaps. May you be able to achieve that state. And if there are any among you who have already attained the state of Sotapanna, then may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill the subsequent stages and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So, with that sole determination in mind, let us all prepare ourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. Time is ticking by at a really rapid pace. I think it was only yesterday I was speaking to Guru Hamdra and reflecting on the fact that this is the second new year that's approaching us since we arrived at the monastery. But we were talking about how it just feels like it was yesterday that we came here. And it's incredible how fast time passes by when that's the last thing you want to happen. Because with every tick and every talk, you move one step closer. You inch a second closer, a minute and an hour closer to the inevitable. The looming dread that's just everywhere. This inevitable that we can't escape. This may be the last time we have, the last opportunity we have for a very long time. So you must always be cognizant of that and always be conscious of that. Just think, it's already time for another New Year celebration. Where's last year gone? A whole year's gone by. Did you even realize that? The crackers are going to start firing off in a few days' time. Another year will come. People will celebrate. They will spend a lot of money on celebrations, on pompous displays of happiness and glory, and then that will pass by as well, just as much as their life passes by them. Another year will go by, and then another, and another, and another, before you realize that's the last New Year I'm going to be spending on this planet Earth, in this life. If that was to happen to us, then we're going to be pretty regretful. We're going to feel very remorseful if that happens to be our fate. True, there's nothing we can do to stop that from happening. People talk about time management all the time. I don't believe in time management. I believe in life management. How can you manage something that you have no control over? You manage your employees, right? Because you can get them to do what you want them to do. You can get them to do the things you want them to do, and you can get them to stop doing the things that you don't want them to do. And therefore, you are their manager. How much can you manage time? Can you make time go any slower or faster? Can you get time to pause, rewind, fast forward? So why do you think you can manage time? That's a flawed concept. You can't manage time, but you can manage your life. You can manage what you do in the limited time that you have. It's such a shame that a lot of people like to major in minor things. A lot of people like to major in minor things. Little things that really don't add a lot of value. That really don't account for much. We have to learn to major in the major things and not worry and trouble ourselves about pesky minor things, because otherwise we're not managing our lives correctly. And before you know it, your life has passed by, your time has passed by, and the last tick has stopped, and now it's time to say goodbye. Just ask yourself, how many people did you have to bid farewell to in the last year? Might have been a husband, a father, a mother or a wife, perhaps even a child for some people. What they lost is something they're probably not going to get back again. People say rest in peace. Makes me laugh. If that is resting in peace, do they not realize that what they have been doing throughout their time here is anything but restful? So now it's time to rest in peace. So all that time they've spent alive was not in rest and was not at peace. So if rest in peace comes after death, then I don't know why people want to delay resting in peace. It's a win-win, right? People don't realize these things. If you think life after death is most definitely with gods in the heavens, then let's all double up and get there. Why delay ourselves? People like to say these things to delude themselves. This is self-delusion. Atmavancha. They like to fool themselves. Let's all go to the heavens, where we can spend time gleefully and happily and blissfully ever after. But then let's hurry up. That's all I have to say. Why waste your time here? We have to face reality, ladies and gentlemen. What you like to think is not necessarily what happens out there. What happens is what happens. It doesn't matter if that's what you like to happen or if that's what you don't like to happen. Because we know cause and effect is what determines the outcomes. None of us can stop time passing by. You're a year older than you were last year. Now you're an hour older than when you arrived here. That's an hour closer to the inevitable. So I for one is not one who celebrates New Year's. And that's because all I can see is time has passed by. I for one is not one who likes to celebrate birthdays. Because really, I'm 1 year closer to death. I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom and therefore let's all just go and cry. Stick our heads under a pillow and cry all day. No, that is negative thinking. What I'm about to talk to you about is not negative thinking. This is thinking realistically, and therefore the only positive way to think. We are stuck in this never-ending circle with one chance to get out of here, with one chance, one opportunity to do something about it. This is why I say let's not major in the minor things. For those of you who are employed in a profession, you are paid a remuneration because of the value that you add to your organization. You're not paid just to turn up. The level of remuneration you receive, the amount of pay you receive, and whatever package and bonus and extras you receive is because of the value you bring to that organization. This is why one person gets paid more and the other person gets paid less. It's because of the value that they bring to the organization, not because of how much time they've spent there. The janitor might spend the same amount of time as the CEO of the company. They both turn up at 8 o'clock and they both leave the office at 5 p.m. So it's not the amount of time you spend at the office that determines how much you have to be paid. It's the value you bring during your time you spend at the organization, in the building, with the others there in their presence. Really, life is no different. We all have equal opportunity to add value to our lives. Equal opportunity. None of us are more equipped or less equipped than the other person. Every Tom, Dick and Harry has equal opportunity to make the most of their lives. Everyone. Does not matter what age you are. Does not matter whether you are male or female. Does not matter what color you are. Each of us, we have been fully equipped to make the most of our lives. Would you agree? You're all fully equipped to make the most of your lives. Making the most of your lives is not really just spending as much time as you can alive on this planet. That is not what making the most of your lives amount to. That's just, you don't have to do anything for that. To spend as much time on this earth, do you have to do anything about that? No, that just happens. All you have to do is eat, sleep, drink, and then repeat. Right? Eat, sleep, drink, wake up, eat, sleep, drink. So it's just eat, sleep, drink, repeat. That's all you have to do, and then you will spend as much time as you can on this planet, but that's not what value adding is. Adding value to your lives is what do you do unto yourself and the others that you touch. The people that come into your lives, how do you touch their lives? What changes do you make into their lives, bring into their lives? How do you influence another person to help them understand the value of their life? That is what determines what your life is worth. And that is what determines how much remuneration you receive. Because that remuneration is absolutely essential, because that determines your next stop. The Bodhisattva is someone who perfected in the art of adding value to oneself and adding value to everyone whose lives he touched. There's no one who has done that better. He perfected that art. And everyone who follows on from that lineage does this to a more or lesser extent. An Arhatun Nuhansa is someone who has added value to their lives, such that they have achieved the actual outcome, what is really worth achieving during their human lives. The question is, ask yourselves, another year has gone by. Another year is approaching. What are your New Year goals? Have you even considered? Have you started making a list? What happened to last year's list? Did you go back and review? Or was it just at a whim and a fancy? You came up with one. 2 weeks, 2 months into the year, sod it. I can't be bothered with this stuff. Do you realize you're spending the most precious thing you have? Think about how meticulously you spend your money. You draw up accounts, come up with Excel spreadsheets and track your progress, track your spendings, your expenditure, your income versus your expenses. You have monthly budgets, most of you, yearly budgets. Have you budgeted your time? Or is it just money that you have to budget? Anything limited, you have to budget, because it's a limited resource. That's why you have to budget it, so you know where you're spending it, right? You can give time and get money. Can you give money and get time? So which do you think you ought to spend more time budgeting? Which do you think is more important to budget? The one resource that's very scarce. The one resource that's most scarce. People spend very little time budgeting. This might sound like a talk on productivity, because it runs in my blood. I was a fanatic about productivity and getting the most of time, making the most of your time, working smart and not working hard. And I was addicted to that sort of stuff in my lay years. So it kind of runs in my blood, so I can't help the urge to talk about these things. But now, I realize that all that learning is not a waste. Because now I realize the value of my time more than I used to. Now I understand my purpose of being here. Those days it used to be to live a happy life, to retire before the age of 50. According to my schedule, I was scheduled to retire at the age of 45. I wanted a free life from that point forward. I didn't want to work from that point forward. I just wanted to live with my wife and be happy. I had it all planned out. But now I realize that is not the purpose of life. Productivity is important. Learning those tips and tricks are important. Now, more so than ever. Because now I understand the value of life. And this is why I think we should all take some time to reflect on this. In the new year, I really want you to spend some time looking back at how you spent your last year. Are you proud about how you spent your last year? Are you happy about the places and the ways that you spent your time? Would you do the same thing again? Given the chance, if you were able to rewind last year, would you spend that last year exactly the same way you did? Or are there things you'd like to change? Well, guess what? You have another opportunity. You have another opportunity. Another year has approached. This is not just another point to celebrate. There's things you need to do to change your life. Are you happy about the direction of the sail that you have set for yourselves? Are you convinced that this is going to take you to the destination that you want to be in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years' time, if you have that many years left? If not, well, change. What makes you different from trees and animals and birds and bees is that you can change. A tree can't change the way it is. If a tree doesn't get a lot of sunlight, well, there's very little the tree can do. It can't just uproot itself and walk over to somewhere where there's more sunlight and then replant itself. But you can. If you don't like the circumstances that you find yourself in your life, well, change. No one's going to stop you. Change. If at least now you're beginning to understand the purpose of your life, how you have been so fortunate to receive the gift of Dhamma, then change. If at the end of this year, all you have done is you just know a lot of Dhamma that you didn't used to know, you can talk about anicca, dukkha, anatta like a parrot, but have no idea, no semblance of really what it all means, then that's just another year gone by. You have become more knowledgeable. You have become wealthier. You have become maybe more powerful because of your connections, because of your educational qualifications. All a means to an end. Knowledge is simply a means to an end. It's the application of knowledge that is important. So in the new year, I would really urge you all to come up with a list of things you want to do in the new year. And I'm not really going to talk to you about, buy myself a car, get myself into a better school, get married. I have no interest in talking about those things. I used to, but not anymore. These are not the things I'm urging you to consider. I want you all to get a notebook before the end of the old year. Start writing down the defilements that you find in your mind. Raga, dvesha, moha. A page each. That'll do for starters. The times in your life where you just can't break the seduction. The things that you find yourself so strongly bound to, you just can't break off. It might be simple things like chocolate cake. Or it might be bigger things that you wouldn't like me talking about in public. Things that you find yourself ashamed to talk about. I do this with our novice monks. I talk to them. Swami knows what are the things that defile your mind. What raga do you have? What types of dvesha do you have? What moha do you have? What are some addictions that you might have you're finding it difficult to break? I'll help you. So I don't have the time to sit down with you one-to-one and have these conversations, but I urge you, do this. Parents, do this with your children. There can't be much that they are not willing to share with you. So write down a list of raga, desire that you have in your mind. Write down a list. Chocolate cake, string hoppers, addicted to watching TV, Kanye West. Write them down. PlayStation, computer games, all these things that you're addicted to, all these things that really bring you pleasure, in other words. These are the raga, these are the desires that you have. Because remember, for as long as you have these desires defiling your mind, you are that much further away from Nibbana. You are that much further away from Nibbana. All these things you have to overcome. One by one you have to overcome them. And the best way to start is by making a list, so you can go through them. You know, sometimes when you sit down to meditate, some people have a problem. What do I meditate on? Well, now you have a list. Now you have a list of things, and if you order them, what is the top most desirous thing that you have that always troubles you? And usually the best way to do this is if you just sit down and close your eyes, it's usually the first place your mind runs to. It could be anything. Could be the guy next door. There might be a particular TV program that you just can't break the addiction to. For some it might be news. I knew someone who spends about 10 hours a day just watching news. And he wasn't even a news reporter. 10 hours a day watching news. Can you imagine that? 10 hours of precious human life watching news? As far as I'm concerned, much of news is just really waste of time. All you need is in the headlines if you really need to watch the news. Anything from that is just, just picking up garbage. Filling your mind up with garbage. So do you find yourself doing those things? Do you find yourself addicted to reading the newspaper every day? Ask yourself. Is there a particular teledrama that you just can't break the habit of watching? Do you always find yourself sitting in front of the TV at that hour, 7 o'clock sharp, and if there's a power cut, then that just sends you insane? Ask yourself. So write down a list of the things that you find desire, the things that keep you from Nibbana. Then there's dvesha. All the people and the things and the events that you always find yourself in conflict with. Sometimes it may be that it's your closest relatives. Or at least you used to think of them as relatives, but now you don't even want to think of them as being relatives. Might be a fight you had, an exchange of words that left that relationship in a very sour state. If you don't have the courage, if you don't have the guts to overcome that, well, you are that much further away from Nibbana. If you don't have the humility, if you don't have the humbleness to overcome that, and it doesn't overcome just like that. There are things you have to do. And like Guru Swami Nuhase reminded over the last weeks, the new year is a great time to do that. To go over, pick up the phone if you can't reach them physically, and just say you're sorry. Sorry about what happened. Yesterday or the day before, a mother visited me because she wanted to talk about an issue she was having with her daughter. She has 2 daughters. One of them is quite interested and keen in the Dhamma, but the other, she doesn't even talk with the mother. For about a year now, she doesn't talk with the mother. Long story, so I'm not going to go into the details of all that, but some of this started off when their father left them for good. He'd taken with him all the wealth and everything that this mother had worked hard to achieve. Having only left the children behind, the father had left with everything. And so now this mother finds herself alone and having to bring up these 2 children by herself. So she says, Swami Nohansa, I've been listening to your sermons for some time now, and I realize that I have to change. I know that my husband is never going to change. Words were exchanged some years ago, and then that was the end of our connection. He left without even saying goodbye, on bad terms, but I have to change. I'm serious about Nibbana. I'm serious about my salvation. So she says, before the new year, she's going to get herself a new SIM, because she doesn't want to keep those connections, but she's going to get herself a new SIM card, give the husband a call, or the ex-husband a call, and then talk to him and say, if there's anything that I ever did to upset you, well, I'm sorry. Imagine what courage this lady has. This is the kind of people who are serious about getting to this goal. I'm going to give him a call and say, I'm sorry for anything that I might have done to hurt you. Knowing fully well, actually, that most of it was the other way around. But she's serious about her salvation. So I'm going to give him a call. I'm going to listen to anything that he has to say. But I'm not going to get angry at him again. All these years I was festering on the inside. Every time I thought of him, every time I sit down for meditation, my mind always runs to him. And that resentment that I have towards him is like a poisonous cocktail that's inside my mind, always burning me from the inside. And I simply have to do something about it. I have to change. He's not going to change. I have to change. So I make a firm resolve. I'm going to give him a call. Say I'm sorry for anything I might have done to you. And then wrap that up for good. So I'm going to throw that SIM card away so we don't have any further connections. See, this is people who are serious. These are the kind of people we welcome here. These are the kind of people that we like to see here. People who have the courage to change. So write down a list of the things that you find yourself always in conflict with. Usually it will be people. People who have done bad things to you. People who might have hurt your feelings, said bad things, left you on very bad terms. Might be an ex-husband, an ex-wife, left on bad terms. But every time the thought of them comes to mind, you're festering on the inside. It's burning on you on the inside. Sometimes anger, hatred. What you're sacrificing is your Nibbana, not theirs. You're sacrificing your Nibbana, you're sacrificing your salvation. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? This one chance that you've got after so many yawns to have been born human and having received the gift of Dhamma, it's not worth it. Let it go. So pick up the phone in the new year. Go over. Talk to them. Not to rekindle old relationships. That's not required. But this is simply to say, I'm sorry. If there was anything that I did ever that resulted in heartache on your part, then I'm sorry. I just came by to say sorry. Thank you for having touched my life. You have changed me in ways that I never imagined. Well, they have, haven't they? You have changed me in ways that I could never have imagined. I have become more courageous. I have become more resolute, more determined. Because have they not taught you the sad state of samsara? Have they not taught you that when you can be so kind to somebody, they can still come and shred your heart to pieces, break you into pieces and throw you in the bin? Have they not taught you that lesson? Some lessons are very expensive. Like some of the courses you go on at the workplace. Some are quite expensive. Nibbana is like that as well. It's an expensive course. Sometimes the cost of that is a broken heart. But you have a choice. You can either cry about it, weep and lament about it, and cry your life away, or you can take that as a lesson and then use that to realize this pitiful, pathetic state of samsara. Understand that these are the things that would happen to me every birth in samsara. For as long as I'm here, for as long as I find myself attaching either to other people, other things, other objects, I'm only going to find myself in states of despair and in destitution. These are all lessons. So thank them for teaching you that lesson. Not in a way that you're mocking them. Thank you for teaching me a lesson. Don't put it like that. You're probably better off not going over in the first place. Hold that opinion in your mind and just say, I'm sorry for anything that I might have done, and be genuine in that apology. And then that's another thing you can tick off your list. Because then, when it comes to your practice, when it comes to your meditation, when it comes to your reflection of the Dhamma, when you come along to the meditation programs, we will not only talk about how you remove yourself from worldly attachments, but also how do you experience the bliss of Nibbana and move your step one step closer there, in that direction. Because there are two things we have to do. Remove ourselves from the worldly attachments and move ourselves to the bliss of Nibbana. Anulomak Shanti and Samyakta Niyame. Both these things have to happen. So we'll talk about this when we come to the programs. But you will find it very difficult to experience the bliss of Nibbana when every time you try to focus on that, all these festering wounds, these rotten experiences, they just keep coming back into your mind. You will find it very difficult to do. This is why we have to be proactively looking for the garbage that has been festering in our minds over these many years of your existence, and then wash them away once and for all. Gone for good. Put all that away to a side. Don't harbor onto old wounds. Clean them up. Throw them away. Discard them. Because it's not worth it. Your life is far more precious. Your life is much more valuable. This is human life that's passing by. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So write down a list of dvesha, the places where you find yourself in conflict. It might be your boss at work. Write it down. He always makes me so angry. He always pressurizes me. He or she always gets me to do things I don't like to do. Now, if that is what always keeps coming back into your mind, then you have to do something about it. Rather than blame the wind, you can change the set of the sail. The wind, really, you can't do anything about it. The wind blows the direction in which the wind blows. But you can change the direction you set your sail. So if it's your boss that always you find menacing, always troubling you, always keep coming back into your mind as being someone who's a real thorn in your life, then maybe it's time you change the way you look at them. Are you not in an employment because of them? The first day you took up that employment, you didn't feel the same way. The first day you went to that workplace, no matter what they were, no matter how they might treat you, you were willing to take up that employment because they gave you a lifeline. Have you forgotten that? Have you forgotten that it is because of them you are the breadwinner of the family? If there's a boss like that, then maybe use the new year to go and talk to them. Not ask them, why do you treat me like this? That's not what the new year is for. To tell them, and if there's anything I have done to upset you, if there's anything I have done during my time at the company with you that you have found upsetting, then please forgive me. I'm trying to change in the new year. I'm trying to become a better person. And they will appreciate you for that. Whether they do or not, it's besides the point. You have done what you have to do. That is what's important. We're not about trying to change other people, are we? No. We've given up on that. Right? So we've given up on trying to change the other guy. We've stopped looking out the window. We're now looking at the mirror. Changing the one person that we see in the mirror, not all the hundreds of thousands of blokes out there in the world. So, whether they decide to change or not, that's up to them, but we can change. Then moha. All the times in your life where you find yourself in vexation, particularly those where you find ego taking hold of you. Because ego is a really good it's one of those most obvious manifestations of moha, ego. Think about the times where you feel ego getting the better of you. Write it down. Is it with your husband? Is it with your wife? Do you find it too belittling to be second? You know how people say, one can be second in the garden. People say that, right? I don't like to be second to anybody. I want to be the first. I want to have the last word. Always. Some people are like that. I always want to have the last word. Ego. Are you the kind of person who's not willing to listen to others? Who will always just have your say in any conversation? Perhaps that might be why you got yourself into some experiences, some situations in life which you today regret. Maybe some relationships you had to break. Good, strong relationships, but you weren't willing to budge. You thought you were right. And you just kept holding on to that view, that opinion, always wanting to have the last word. And then you lost it. It's time to change. If you're not willing to change, then forget Nibbana. You're not serious about it. You're just kidding about it. You're just toying with the idea of Nibbana. You might as well not be here. Because I don't have the time for you. If you're not serious about Nibbana, I don't have the time for you. Go through that list. Do you find yourself overpowering about your colleagues? Do you find yourself bossing them around all the time just because you can? Just because you can get away with it? Do you find yourself that you are, when you're among friends, you like to be the smart ass? You know, smarty pants? Are you that kind of person who always has to crack the last joke? You know, some people they'll joke, they'll have a bit of a laugh. You always have to find yourself cracking a joke just so you can become centerpiece again, take center stage. Do you find yourself doing such things? Are you always still trying to make a somebody out of yourself? Nibbana is not that. Nibbana is making a nobody out of you, not a somebody. So ask yourself, who can give you the best analysis about yourself? Yes. There was one other person, but he passed away 2,500 years ago. He could have given you a full breakdown, end-to-end analysis. These are the bits you need to work on right away. These are the things you can worry about later. That person passed away 2,500 years ago, so we now don't have that privilege. Therefore, we have to make do with what we have left. But actually, that's not so bad, because that's you. You know yourself best, as much as I know myself best. So raga, dvesha, moha, write them down. If you're serious about Nibbana, do what I'm asking you to do. Write it down. Because as you write it down, you will start to read your mind. This is getting to know yourself, really. As I've always been saying, the Dhamma is for nothing else but to get to know yourself. What are you if not the totality of all raga, dvesha, moha? That is you. When you talk about me, what else do you have to talk about? Raga, dvesha, moha walking on two legs. Yes or no? Raga, dvesha, moha walking on two legs. Well, then write it down. So you know me. You know who you are. So someone asks you, who are you? Yeah, here you go. That's me. I think it's important everyone does this. So you take stock of who you are. So when it comes to the new year, now you know the things that you need to work on straight off the bat. And then start working on them. You know, when you come to the sermons and you start listening to the sermons, whether you're here or whether you're listening to them offline or whatever, or online, make a resolve, right? You know, that number one on my list, I really need to get rid of that. I'm not happy about it and I'm not proud about it. I want to get rid of that. If that's the last thing I do, start to work on it. Whenever you sit down for your meditation sessions, contemplate on that. It's a really good question that's been put forward today, and I'll answer it at the same time, in fact. When contemplating Udayangam Attangam Ashvada, if an unwelcoming thought arises, a moment in which we experience a hurt feeling, mainly a thought that arose were averse, in this instance, how could we see and contemplate on Ashvada? Kindly explain. Whenever your mind runs wherever, your mind is always seeking Ashvada. Pleasure. That's always what the mind seeks. Pleasure. Nothing else. So, you know, when you sit down for your meditation sessions, once you've got the understanding of the Dhamma, because you know yourself best, once you've got the theory, now it's all about practical application. Simple as that. Once you've gotten hold of the theory, now it's practical applications, like what you did at science. First you took the theory lesson from your teacher, then you went into the laboratory and started your experimentations. Here you have nothing to experiment. All you have to do is apply. That's the difference. Because this is a tried and tested method and it works. You don't have to experiment. It works. All you have to do is apply it. So, you know how sometimes when there's a crime scene and they bring the police to investigate, right? Sometimes when the guy who's committed the crime has run away and now you need to find the person, they bring dogs, police dogs, right? So what a police dog would do is, it comes and takes a sniff, some kind of article that belonged to the fugitive who's now run away, and then the dog gets scent of this guy, and then now what you have to do is just let the dog loose, and then the dog starts running. He follows the trail of the scent, and then he goes and stops the last place where the person was, and then from that point forward it can't pick up any sense, so that's where it stops. You can do the same when you sit down for your meditation. Let your mind run loose. The mind will start running on that trail of where the mind is so strongly attached to. So if your mind always runs to a favorite teledrama that you always like to watch, and that's what always keeps coming back to mind, well then that's where you need to do your crime scene investigations. That's where you need to start doing your investigation. That's where you need to apply the theory of Dhamma, because that is what you're attached to. That's why your mind went and stopped there. It's like an elastic band, rubber bands. Right? When you hold the two bits apart, when you hold it with your two hands and pull it apart, and you let go, where does that bit stop? At the other end, right? Where it's attached to. Does it travel the other direction? No, it always goes back to the other end where it's attached to. So your mind will do much the same. If you just let go of your mind, it will go and stop where it likes to dwell. Where it likes to dwell is where the problem is. That's where it likes to dwell. So if it's an old relationship that you used to have, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, people have these things. For some of our young novice monks, these are some of the problems they have. Goes and stops with the ex-girlfriend, who used to be their lay girlfriend. Now they come and say, Swaminos, I try to focus on my meditation object, but my mind always runs there. Well, great, because that's what you're still attached to. So that's what you need to contemplate on. That's where you need to apply the theory of Dhamma to remove the bonds that keep you bound to that whatever object. That is the practical application. So always your mind runs to wherever there is ashvada. So what about when there are times where you're experiencing thoughts that are unwelcome, unwelcoming thoughts? So, for example, a moment where you became angry with somebody, when someone hurt your feelings. What if your mind goes and stops there? Again, the mind is always looking for ashvada. So your mind knows now that that is a point in which there was vexation, where there was suffering. So the mind is looking for ashvada. The mind is looking for relief from that vexation. This is why the mind's always running there. I need relief. This is a pain that I have, so I need to relieve myself from this pain. Do something about it already. That's what the mind is saying. Here's a pain point. Relieve me from it. Relief from that pain is what's going to bring me the greatest amount of pleasure. So come on, already do something about it. This is why the mind is running there. So if it was a fight you had, a brawl you had, and that's where your mind runs to. Your mind is saying, I've got a problem. Sort me out. Sort it out. Here's my biggest pain point. Relieve me from it. Therefore I can experience pleasure. This is what the mind's asking for. So, of course, what you need to do now is, again, apply the Dhamma. Because the mind's asking for pleasure, but you know that pleasure is nothing but it's a falsehood. It's relief from that pain that's ultimately going to bring you pleasure, and there's really no pleasure as such to be found out there. It's just relief from vexation, relief from suffering. The reason you're suffering is because of attachment. So what are you attached to? That's what you need to ask yourself then. So it's like, in your kitchen, if you always find a trail of ants, right, running in the middle in the middle of the kitchen, or along your pantry, you can do one of two things. You can get a bottle of Baygon and spray over the ants, right, and that will rid yourself of the problem. For how long? It's quite temporary. Or you can go to the source that attracts the ants and then remove the attraction. If you remove the source, it could be maybe some sugar that you had spilt or something like that. Get rid of that. Now you don't need to deal with the result. The ants will be gone in a few minutes. So then you have not committed any unwholesome deeds either. You've just removed the the attraction, you just remove the source. Once the cause is gone, the effect will look after itself. This is why I say, let's not try to find solutions to problems. Just deal with the problem. Rid the problem, not try and find solutions to problems. Because whenever you try and find a solution to a problem, it's another problem. You're just inviting another problem every time you try to find a solution to a problem. If you get yourself a can of Baygon and start spraying on the ants, with every ant that you kill, are you not inviting a whole host of problems? All of that is demerit that you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay for. But if you remove the problem, now there are no consequences that you have to deal with. That is how you have to approach this. I'll talk about Uddiyanga Matthangama later on in the second half of the sermon. But whether it's something that you find pleasurable that always keeps coming to mind, or something that some event or some person that you find is always conflicting, always having a friction with, that comes to mind, either way, that is the problem that you have to deal with. And you have to start dealing with it by first making a list of the things that you have to deal with. So start off the new year with that. Start off the new year by trying to understand who you are, getting to know yourself. Perhaps last year you spent a lot of time trying to know everybody else, getting to know your neighbors, getting to know your relations. Right? That's who you got to know in the last year. This year, let's change that. Let's get to know ourselves. Let's get to know who I am. Who am I? Let's try and answer that question. It's the totality of the Raga, Dvesha, Moha, walking on two legs. So once you've written that down, now you know the obstacles that keep you from Nibbana. Then we can start working on it. And the reason I'm sharing this with you now is, of course, when you come for the meditation program, which is going to be in 2 weeks' time, or 3 weeks' time, if you will have done what I'm asking you to do, you will come along to the program with plenty of material to apply the theory. You will have a list with you. You don't have to bring a piece of paper if you don't fancy that, but at least in your mind you will have contemplated on, here are the things that my mind is most strongly attached to. So then what you can do is, when you have the time, when we sit down and we start our practice, each and every one of you will be contemplating on something subtly different. Because these are the things that you're attached to, not the things that I'm attached to. There's no point in me, if I like chocolate cake, there's no point in me sitting down and going chocolate cake is anicca, chocolate cake is dukkha, chocolate cake is anatta. What if you're not attached to chocolate cake? I'm just wasting your time. We're going to be talking about anicca, dukkha, anatta. The application of that, you decide. Not me. You will decide. I will give you the medicine. Where you have to apply it, well, only you know. Only you know where you're wounded, where you're hurt, where you've got the rash. I can't come up to you and apply the ointment wherever you have a rash. That you have to do. I will do it where I have my wounds. You'll do it where you have your wounds. Does that make sense? So, come prepared with that list. This is a great way to start off the new year, because you will get to find out who you are. And also, as the year passes by and you start ticking things off, I can't tell you how good you'll feel about yourself. Having overcome some of those pesky, annoying, irritable habits that you might have had, some of the things that you found yourself desiring, but you know you really want to break this habit, but you can't because you simply haven't had the time to focus on it. Those things you'll be able to tick off. And as you tick them off one at a time, you'll feel really good about yourself. And that is a Priti Sambojjhanga. It is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. You'll experience joy as a result of that. And that joy will keep pushing you to Nibbana. Look at what I've been able to achieve. that joy, the joy of having overcome some of the things that you thought you never were able to do, that joy will keep pushing you to Nibbana. And that experience will give you conviction that the Dhamma is absolutely true. There's no doubt about it. Look what I've been able to accomplish. That will keep pushing you towards Nibbana. So do it. Really important. I do it, this is why I'm saying you, I'm asking you, I'm telling you and advising you to do it for yourselves. Also, something else I think is important for us all to reflect on is we must always be very careful not to become victims of karma. What do I mean by this? Everyone out there, including ourselves, we are finally, the karma is my kinsman. Ultimately, the karma that we have done determines what vipaka comes our way. And people that live in this world, and not just people but all sentient beings, they go about reconciling sansaric debts. You see a man hitting another guy, another man getting into a fight, that's a sansaric debt that's been reconciled. A loan was acquired and now it's being repaid. That's what's happening. If we fail to understand that this is the nature of how the world operates, this is the way the world operates, we always find ourselves getting involved in such situations, trying to entangle ourselves in the reconciliation of sansaric transactions. And that can be pretty dangerous. Because when one transaction is being reconciled, you become a player in that, and then you kick off another one. You bring onto yourself troubles that you didn't have up until that point. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're on a bus. You're on the bus, and two guys are having an argument about who should be sitting on a seat. I'm sure you'll have seen plenty of these. One guy says, no, I got in first. The other guy says, well, I was waiting for that seat, so I came from the front of the bus. I came all the way here to get my seat, grab the seat. Why did you sit down when you saw me clearly, when you saw clearly that I was coming? Right? So now, these guys, they're having an argument about who gets to sit down in the seat. These things happen all the time. Now you're observing this, and you have an opinion of really what the outcome should be. If you can't fight the urge to say something, you'll find yourself getting entangled in a sansaric debt that's being reconciled, a sansaric transaction that is just being reconciled. Right? Those two guys, they are bound to have that argument and potentially maybe even get into a fight. This is not the first time that they have come across each other. It's some old affair that they had in samsara, and an opportunity has just arisen for them to get into this brawl. And whenever there's a brawl, there's a winner and there's a loser, unless you receive the Dhamma. If you have been bestowed with the Dhamma, then you don't need to find losers and winners, right? But if they haven't got the Dhamma, then there's going to be a loser and then there's going to be a winner and a loser. Well, they wouldn't be having the argument if they had gotten the Dhamma. The reason they're having the argument in the first place is because they have not received the Dhamma. So now you're a bystander observing this, and you're feeling the urge to get involved and say, no, hang on, guys, right? Let me sort this out, because I know it all. Right? That guy was there first, so he should be sat down. Why are you getting into this argument? Right? Let's cut it off. Right? You feel the urge to get involved. remember, you're just digging yourself a grave. You're digging yourself a grave. Again, this is ego that is surfacing from the inside. Even the want to do what is just, serve justice. The want to do what is just is also a form of ego. Because you can't just wait for whatever to happen the way it's going to happen. You feel the need to get involved and change the outcome to what you think is right. This is because you can't be okay with whatever the outcome is. So you have, here's what should happen, and here's what's happening. So now I'm in conflict with what's going on. So you get involved. When you get involved, you've just added a third party to this equation. Now, what one of the guys might do is walk up to you and say, well, why are you getting involved in this? Who asked you? Why are you saying your piece? Who asked you? And then you get angry about that. Well, I said what I had to say because I can see what you're doing is wrong. Now, that transaction is paused because you've just kicked off another transaction. This transaction can also end up in a brawl, in a fight. Sometimes you might end up with a red eye or a black eye. Because you just got involved in a transaction that wasn't anything to do with you. You just couldn't mind your own business. People find it very difficult to mind their own business because always they want to get involved in things. And this is again because this is a form of ego that you sense from the inside. Be conscious about this. Be aware of this. Right? Let's say you see someone, and by the way, I'm not saying the only way that really you should be helping somebody, if you see them in this kind of situation, and if it's prudent that you do it, is by giving them the Dhamma, because that is the only answer. Because then you're not solving the problem; you're removing the problem in the first place. You're eradicating the problem by giving them the Dhamma. But right now is not the time to give them the Dhamma. They're not ready. Neither of them are ready for that because now they just want to prove that they're right. This is not the time. This is not the place. These two guys you meet some other day, maybe then you can give them the Dhamma. But now is not the time. Now is not the place. Let's give another example. You see someone walking along the road, let's say some rowdy lads, right? They see a dog by the roadside and they decide to throw stones at it, hurt this evidently harmless animal. Okay, throwing rocks and stones or whatever at this animal. Now it might be that you feel the urge to get involved. You want to get involved because you think, oh, poor animal, you shouldn't be hurting that animal. What you don't know is this is a sansaric transaction that is now being reconciled. This animal, in a previous instance, would have done something similar to this group of people, and now it's time for it to suffer the consequences. But you can't bear to watch it. You want to get involved and change the outcome because you think, no, animals should not be hurt like that. I should get involved. I should stop this from happening. You're asking for trouble. Are you willing to take the risks? Is the question. Because when you get involved in this situation, those guys might now decide to change their animosity that they have towards the animal towards you. Why did you get involved? What's your say? Why do you want to come along and give us advice? Who asked you for your advice? Then you have to say something in return. Well, because what you're doing is wrong. Well, who asked you? Now the fight is not with the boys and the dog, it's now with them and you. You've just kicked off another sansaric transaction. If you found yourself in the situation where Devadatta was about to throw that boulder down the cliff to hurt the Buddha, what might you have done? Gotten involved and stopped it from happening? Ideally nothing. Ideally nothing. When you begin to understand that when you have a particular outcome, like now you have an outcome, right? You don't want the Buddha to be hurt. You want that to stop because now you are in favor of the Buddha. That is selfish. Because you are attached to a particular outcome. For yourself to be happy, you want X outcome, not Y. So you, for yourself, have decided, this is what I like, I need this to happen. In a world that is anicca, you have said for yourself, this is what I like, this is what I want, so now this is what I want to happen. Because we are failing to see that there is a samsaric transaction that's being reconciled here. Therefore, we feel the urge to get involved. So in the example of going back to the bus, right? You feel, no, this is what is right is for that guy to take the seat and not the other guy. So again, you have a view of what is right, what is wrong, based on based on the beliefs that you hold, based on the opinions that you hold. In an anicca world, again, we have set an expectation. Isn't that selfish? Because what is the self again? Is where we have set an expectation and we want that expectation to materialize. Not the other. I want X, so I need X to happen. That is the self after all. My way, or the highway, right? This is my way. I need my way to happen. Therefore, you get involved in that. The advice I'm sharing with you is, the more you begin to understand the Dhamma, the more you begin to realize that really your purpose of being here is not to try and, is to really achieve your salvation, the less it will become your duty, the less you will make it your duty to stop the unfairness that happens in the world out there. Because what is fair and unfair is a decision that you have made. Because really, if you think about it, everything that happens in the world is totally fair. It's totally fair. A woman gets beaten up by her husband. Fair or unfair? Yes. But if you think about from the perspective of the Dhamma, she's getting what she deserves. Because that is karma bearing vipaka. This has happened the other way around previously, and now it's time to bear the consequences of the bad deeds that she's done. So, domestic violence. Everyone has a say about these things, right? Is it right to eat meat? Is it right to kill animals, slaughter animals for the purpose of meat? Killing is wrong, of course. Right? So you shouldn't kill. The advice I'm giving you is, don't you be the person that gets involved in killing or stealing or lying or engaging in sexual misconduct or robbing or whatever, right? Don't you be the person that gets involved in that. But when you see this happening out there, in the world out there between other parties, don't make it your duty to go and then resolve those situations. Because when you do, you're starting to play a part in trying to change the world again. This is again trying to heal the world. When there's a bigger part that you have to play for yourself, because ultimately what's happening out there is really fair in all senses, because it's karma and vipaka doing its job. Question, sir? It could be. And generally, if you find yourself getting involved in it, then you are the missing piece of the puzzle. You're the missing piece of the puzzle, and by engaging in that, it could be that you're putting that final piece in the puzzle, and then the outcome is going to happen as it should be. But what I'm trying to suggest to you is try and fight the urge as much as you possibly can when you see these things happening out there to get involved in it, because what could happen is whatever choice you decide, whatever thing you decide to do, someone's going to like it, the other's not going to dislike it. And that grudge that they have between the two of them might be directed at you, because now you have just said something that someone doesn't like. So now the animosity that they have, the grudge that they have, is now with you. So you have just kicked off another transaction. This is solely advice for people who want to get the hell out of here. If you are someone who wants to make the world just, serve justice to the world, see a better world, see a happier place, right? Live in a happier world, then you can completely discard my advice. Put it to a side. But if you're someone who is completely focused on getting the hell out of here, if what you want to do is getting yourself out of samsara, what I would say is you already have enough samsaric transactions to bring you consequences for many yawns and a day. You don't need any more than that. What you haven't been able to achieve so far is the understanding and the comprehension you need to get rid of samsara, to come out of samsara, to break the cycle of samsara. That is where we need to be focusing our efforts on. In your capacity as someone who's, maybe a doctor or maybe a lawyer or perhaps a policeman or whatever, it'll be your duty, you'll be duty bound to do certain things in society, because that's your duty. Okay? So for example, if you're a policeman and you see two people fighting, you can't just say that's a samsaric transaction and walk the other way. Because that is now your duty to get involved and stop that from happening, to cut it out, right? The brawl has to turn. It's your duty to stop it. So then, I'm not talking about such situations. I'm talking about situations where you're not duty bound to do it. You're not duty bound to get involved, get entangled. On these occasions, observe it and take a lesson from it. Observe it and take the lesson where, what if I was the recipient of this infliction, and I've done plenty in my samsaric time to receive such treatment? Let this be a lesson to me to hasten my journey and get the hell out of here. That is what you need to observe and take from that, rather than trying to get involved and try to be the peacemaker. Solely for people who are dedicated and want nothing other than getting out of samsara. Some people, they have asked me these questions, particularly young children, because they're still trying to understand, right, the Dhamma. If I see a snake getting hold of a rabbit, Swamina, so what should I do? So the snake has engulfed the rabbit and now is trying to eat it. The snake is trying to kill the rabbit. What should you do? What do you think? Nothing. The urge might be, hit the snake and save the rabbit. Well, by saving the rabbit, you have earned yourself merit, but by killing the snake, or either taking away the only meal that it might be having for the rest of the month, or perhaps maybe a long time, you've committed a sin. That was a samsaric transaction that was bound to happen. It was not your job to get involved and serve justice, because what is right and what is wrong, who decides? You have just decided what right and wrong is. You have decided what right and wrong is. Who gave you the authority to do that? That was ego. Ego gave you the authority to decide, because this is what I think is right, this is what I think is wrong, so what I think is right has to happen, and what I think is wrong mustn't happen. the Buddha would never get involved in such situations. There have been occasions in the Buddha's life where he's seen sometimes some young children hurting, I think it was a snake or something, I can't remember exactly the example, the situation. I think there were some young guys who were hurting this animal. At that point the Buddha went along and he started to preach the Dhamma. This is why I say, if you are giving the Dhamma, there's no problem with that. But it has to be the right place and it has to be the right time. So the Buddha went there and started to give the Dhamma to these young boys and explained to them that what you should be doing, this is not something you should be doing. All he did was give them the Dhamma and let them decide what they wanted to do. He didn't pull the boys away, he didn't pull the snake away, he didn't do any of those things. But he did that out of compassion, not for the animal. He did that out of compassion for the boys. Because what they're doing now is committing an unmeritorious deed by killing the animal, and therefore they may have to suffer the consequences at a later point in their life. So if you're giving the gift of Dhamma, there's no problem with that. But if it's the right place and it's the right time, then it's okay to do so. But not otherwise. Every time is not the right time to give the Dhamma, and every place is not the right place to give the Dhamma either. So be very careful. The gist of what I'm trying to explain to you here is, when your understanding of the Dhamma increases as it has been, you will feel the urge to get involved and serve justice on the world, to do what you think is right. My advice to you is, stop and think. You're serving right because that's what you think is right. It is. It is ego-driven. Because ultimately, you have a view of this is what has to happen. You're attached to that outcome. That is ultimately what ego is, because that is what brings you pleasure. Even in a simple example, even in an example like that, your pleasure is in seeing that, that brawl comes to an end, perhaps, or that the rightful guy gets the rightful place. All of this is ego-driven, and ultimately, self and pleasure-driven. It's for us to understand that this is how my mind works. Take that as a lesson. Take that teaching for us to change ourselves, to understand that this is not a place for us to be and have fun, because this is the nature of the world. That guy, all he did was he came and took a seat. Why are they having a fight about it now? Pointless argument. Why? And now, in a moment it's going to end up in a brawl, and one's going to end up with a black eye. Why is this going on? Well, you should note for yourself, well, this is a samsaric transaction that's being resolved now. That's being reconciled now. Seeing that, take a lesson for yourself and help that to encourage you further to hasten your journey, to get out of samsara, and try and not get entangled in such situations. Because ultimately what can happen is, when one samsaric transaction is being reconciled, you get involved and you kick off another, but this time you're the other party. Sometimes people get into traffic accidents, right? Traffic incidents. I don't get the sense behind why people do this, particularly in these countries, right? When someone hits another person, everyone else what they do is they come along, they get the guy out of the car, and now they start beating him or setting the vehicle on fire. Madness. People do these things. I don't understand why they do it, but people do these things. So when you see something like that happen, now you have a question. Should I get involved? Should I stop that from happening? Or should you just walk away and let them resolve their own samsaric transactions? Remember, you're not the only one around. There are lots of other people. Are you willing to sacrifice your samsara to stop one brawl from happening? To stop one fight or one person from getting hurt? Are you willing to sacrifice your samsara? This might feel like quite heartless for me to say something like this. But all I am saying is, if you get involved, perhaps one swing of maybe a bat that they have, or some kind of weapon that they have, you might be the person that gets injured as a result of you getting involved in that. Now you've lost a limb. You've gone blind now. You've gone deaf now. Now who's going to pay? You have just sacrificed your opportunity to attain Nibbana. If only you'd just walked away. Let them sort out their own problems. Ultimately, you have a view that this is the outcome that has to be. What they're doing is wrong. What should happen is for them to not be doing that and let the guy get back in the car and drive off and maybe take this guy to the hospital and treat them. So that is your view of what has to happen. But ultimately, this is a samsaric debt that's been reconciled. This guy did the same thing to the other person or something similar in a previous time in samsara. And now it's time to pay for that. So this is why I say, ultimately, everything that happens in the world is fair. Everything is just. Karma is just. Karmic energy is very fair. Only we can't see it that way. We like to change it to what we believe is right, to get the outcome that we think is right. And by doing that, we get involved in those transactions and ultimately get ourselves in trouble. So think about it. I'm not saying stop if that is what your view and belief system is, right? If you can't see unfairness and you really want to get involved and sort people out and serve justice, then I just want you to consider what I have explained to you there. If you do it with what, sir? Maybe. Yes. Because the thing is, if you have dispassion, then you've already achieved what you need to. You're an arahant. In those occasions, right, you have nothing to lose. Right? If you are dispassionate about everything, then you have nothing to lose because you have already achieved what it is you have to achieve. What you should do as an arahant, I can't really advise because I'm not one yet. So I don't know how an arahant might behave in such situations. I can only second guess, but that would be wrong of me to do so. The best thing to do is just mind your own business. If that is nothing to do with you, just mind your own business. If you have a duty, if you are duty bound to get a certain outcome to materialize, then of course you have to get involved. Right? For example, if you are a teacher at school and you see two children having a fight in the class, you can't just say that's just a samsaric transaction and walk away. You're a teacher. It's your business to stop children from fighting in the classroom. It's your duty to do that. Yes, madam. Mm-hmm. 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 So that's a really good question. Why do you call this person a friend? Ultimately, you're attached to this person. That's why one person's a friend and the other person's not so much a friend. It's just another person. Yeah. So when you want a particular outcome for this friend, you want what is fair for this friend to happen. I had a feeling this might be a Pandora's box that I've just opened. All the points that you're raising, ladies and gentlemen, are all valid points. Okay? They're all valid from your point of view. Because ultimately, we have decided that there is right and wrong in this world. Okay? This is right, this is wrong. We have made that call based on our values, based on our belief systems. So when we see that a child is being abused, for instance, we fail to see that this is a samsaric transaction that is being reconciled here. We fail to accept and acknowledge that this is just karma vipaka. So therefore, we have a belief that what has to happen is for this child to be saved from that situation. And I'm not saying don't. What I'm saying is the only thing you can offer in that instance is the Dhamma and nothing else. Your extent of getting involved in that situation should be as far as offering them the Dhamma. But again, there's a place and a time to do that. If you offer them the Dhamma, either to the party or to either party, right? To either the party who's the abuser or the person who's being abused, right? In your example, for instance, because they're both suffering. One person is committing a bad deed for which they're going to have to suffer later on. The other is suffering for the suffering consequence of the deeds that they've done in the past, right? So one has to learn to accept that these are the consequences of my bad karma. The other has to learn that if I continue to do such things, then I'm going to have to suffer similarly in a future point in time. So they both are lacking in the Dhamma, potentially. They're both lacking in the Dhamma. It might be that the child being abused or the person being abused is maybe an arahant. In which case, they wouldn't care anything, they wouldn't care two hoots about it. Like there was an arahat nun who got preyed upon by another person, and a man who was waiting for an opportunity to abuse this arahat Bhikshuni Vahanse. And he'd been waiting for this Bhikshuni Vahanse to turn up at the monastery, and having sought the opportunity to do so, walked into the room and expressed to her, I'm here, I need to be with you, and whether you like it or not, I'm going to satisfy myself. So at which point this Arahat Meherin Vahanse asks, why do you want this? What are you trying to achieve here? Well, when I look at your eyes, I can't bear to control myself. Right? So what she did was she plucked her eye out and said, if this is what you want, then take it in and please yourself. So at that point, the man ran away. Of course, having seen this ghastly sight, he runs away. Why did Arahant Meherin Vahanse did that on that occasion was because she realized she was going to be abused. That was not her problem. What this man's about to do now is going to bear serious consequences on him for a very long time in samsara. This is where dispassionately she got involved in that situation, not for her benefit, but for the benefit of the person who's just about to abuse her. If you engage in what you're about to do now, she's thinking this in her mind. If you engage in what you're about to do now, you're going to suffer for an extremely long time in samsara. And because of my compassion, I'm not willing to see that happen to you. If there's something I can do, I will help you with that. And really what she did was preach the Dhamma. Is this what you want? Well, then take it. But never did she raise an arm. Never did she pick up a weapon to fight the other person. So in an example where you might see a child being abused, for instance, or maybe a man or a woman who's being subject to domestic violence, right? These are things that we might see in society. If you can help them with the Dhamma, of course, please do so. I mean, this is what I do on a regular basis. People come here with all sorts of issues that they have in life, and then I help them out. As a monk, this is my duty, to give them the Dhamma, but I don't visit people's homes and say, hey, why are you beating that woman up? Stop that. That is not my place, because that is not the time nor the place to do it. Because that is a samsaric transaction that is happening, and what someone deserves is being received by that person. Yes, madam. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Could you repeat the question, madam? List down, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Is it so easy to just get on with life? Is it so easy to just get on with life? So what I'm suggesting you do is, here are the steps that you can take. Because ultimately, if we didn't have desire, aversion and delusion in our minds, we won't even have to talk about any of this stuff. Because then you would be able to look very objectively at all things that happen out there. Then you won't have any anger or resentment or hatred towards anybody, no matter what they do to you. There could be someone who gives you poison every day, and you know it, and you'll be fine with that. You won't have any thoughts of anger or hatred or resentment towards them. But we're not talking about arahants here. We are talking about someone who wants to be there, be an arahant eventually. And for that kind of person, if you know that someone's inflicting harm on you, then you do know that inside your mind you have anger towards them. So it's then up to each and every one of us to deal with that anger, to deal with the hatred. And to deal with that is really to absorb the Dhamma. There is no other medicine for this except the Dhamma. While we treat ourselves with the Dhamma, what I'm saying is, when you see people getting into fights, getting into problems with each other, what we need to understand is they are lacking in the Dhamma. When you feel that someone's being nasty to you, someone's saying bad things to you, someone's inflicting pain or hurt on you, again, you're lacking in the Dhamma. That's all it is. I'm not talking about physical pain, because physical pain you can't stop, of course. I'm talking about the mental anguish, the mental pain, the mental agony. That can be stopped. The reason that hasn't stopped yet is because we haven't got the Dhamma, not sufficiently anyway. So while we reflect on anicca dukkha anatta, and in our practice, the things that bring us aversion, the instances in which we feel aversion, we apply anicca dukkha anatta to rid the sources of aversion from our mind and cleanse our mind. That is one aspect. The other angle about when you see people getting involved in fights and things like that, my suggestion was, look at it as a samsaric transaction being reconciled without getting involved in it. Because when you do, you have just created another problem onto yourself. Because now you're going and getting engaged in this game that you weren't even a player in before that. Now you have just created a situation that can result in injury being inflicted on yourself, for instance. And that takes you away from your goal of getting to Nibbana. If the answer is not clear, then you can ask me again. If you have the question, then other people might as well. Okay, you can talk to me afterwards if you like. Yes, madam. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course. For as long as you're fulfilling duties and responsibilities that the world expects you to, well, there's no breaking out of it. I'm talking about someone who wants to break free from worldly duties and responsibilities. Yeah. You're fulfilling a duty. Yes. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. When you are duty bound to do it, you have no excuse. Either you have to out yourself from that role, okay? So if you're a policeman, for example, just going back to that example, or if you're a law enforcement officer, you are duty bound to resolve that situation. You have no choice about it. Or don't do the role. If you're not willing to go and get involved and resolve a situation, then you're not suitable for the role. So then get out and go and maybe run a shop or something like that. You are duty bound. Of course. Of course you're duty bound. So if your children are misbehaving, you as a parent are duty bound to discipline them. And if that requires you to beat them, I'm not saying what you have to do after that. I can't tell you beat children. I can't tell you to do that. But as a parent, maybe you are left with no choice. But what I'm talking about is where you are duty bound to do things, you have no choice. But where you are not duty bound, don't make it your duty to go and get involved in those situations. Don't artificially bring duties upon yourself to go and serve justice on the world because you're asking for trouble. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because again, it's subjective because it's worldly. Right? Duties and responsibilities are things we talk about when we talk about worldly connections, relationships, and so on and so forth. When you talk about Nibbana, there's no duty. Because there's no one to serve duty. There's no one to fulfill duty. When you get, parents, that's a really good example, madam. As parents, if you bring children into this world, you have no choice but to discipline them because that is your duty as a parent. But what you need to understand is, as a parent, I will have to earn merit and demerit, because if you hit the child, then that is demeritorious. But do you have choice? The only choice would be maybe you can try and use just verbal instruction. Don't do it as harshly as you can. Maybe use verbal instruction to discipline the child without hitting them. But I don't know how far you can be successful in that. I myself was hit plenty of times by my parents. So your duty is to save your child. There's no second. Of course you will have to, because that's your duty, madam. That's because your duty. So please don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, when it's your duty to do something, you have no choice about it. Right? I repeat. Let me emphasize that again. If you have a duty to do something, then you have no choice about it. As a teacher, you will have a duty. As a parent, you will have a duty. As a husband, you will have a duty. As a wife, you will have a duty. As a friend, you might have a duty. When you have a duty, fulfill your duties. When I was a banker, right? At one point, I worked on the tills. When I first started my career in banking, it was my duty to check that people who came to the bank came with, they were genuine. So the account holder was the person who was stood in front of me. So I had to check their IDs and so on and so forth. There have been several times where people who walked up had fake passports with them. They had fake money, fake notes with them. My duty now is to ring up the police, law enforcement agencies and inform them that someone's walked into the bank with fake ID. Of course that's going to get them in trouble. But that is my duty. But if I am the guy standing at the till next to this person, I have no duty in getting involved in that transaction. Imagine I'm also a customer, and I know the customer standing next to me is in the bank now, and they're getting in. They're doing a transaction, and the cashier has not realized that what they've got with them is a fake passport. I'm not duty bound to inform the cashier that this is a fake passport. If I now get myself involved in that, I'm asking for trouble. Because it's not my duty to get involved in it. But me, as being the cashier, I have a duty to check the account, to check the ID is proper, to check that this is the genuine person standing in front of me, that is the right account that we're making transactions on. All of that is my duty. So I have a duty to my employer. I have a duty to my employees. I have a duty as a parent, as a child, as a husband, as a wife. So these are duties you have to fulfill. There's no doubt about that. So don't get me wrong there. I emphasize, your duties you have no choice about. You have to do it. The only alternative is to get out of here, where you are no longer duty bound. This is why I say, for as long as we are in samsara, you will have to do good and bad. There is no role you can fulfill. There is no duty you can fulfill by simply doing just good. There's no job out there. There's no role out there. You can't be a parent simply doing good and no bad. How will you bring your children up that way? How can you stop your children from doing bad things? It may be that occasionally you might have to hit them. You might have to shout at them. And if that hurts their feelings, well, you've just committed an unmeritorious deed. But what choice do you have? You decided to bring them into this world, now you have no choice. So whenever you attach yourself, you put yourself into these situations, you have no choice now. You have no choice. So the only option left is what? Get the hell out of here. Because then you are no longer duty bound. As a monk, I have been able to redeem myself from lots of duties and responsibilities that I used to have to play in society. A lot of those duties I have become free from, but still I have a duty to give you the Dharma. That is a duty I have. If you come along and if you have a problem about something, or maybe you want to transfer merits to your ancestors, I have a duty to help you. That is my duty. And if there are novice monks in this monastery, I have a duty to help them grow up and take the Dhamma and become good citizens of the country, and above all that, become an arahant eventually. So that is my duty to all the parents who come and trust us with their children. Of course, I have a duty. I can't simply say, well, that's just, I can't help them. You came and dropped them here. If they become arahants, they become arahants. Otherwise, sort it. I can't say that. Parents will they'll go mad. I have a duty. But again, even as a monk, I have a duty. So the only place where you don't have duties is Nibbana. For as long as you're here in this world, no matter what role you play, you will have duties. And you will have responsibilities. And in fulfilling those duties and responsibilities, we must try and be very careful that we only do meritorious deeds. And try as much as we possibly can to refrain from the unmeritorious deeds. But I'll tell you this much. It's so very difficult to do that. Kalla sukha kammam, kalla sukha vipakam. Kalla sudu karma, kalla sudu vipaka. Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. But remember, we are talking about the Chetana of someone who's not an arahant. Someone who's not an arahant always has ignorance and attachment that preside over all their thoughts. Even when you're doing kusala sankara, still ignorance lays dormant. Still avidya lays dormant. So the only time where you're completely rid of ignorance and attachment is where at the moment you become an arahant. At that point forward, do whatever you like. Because from that point forward, you will not be doing any unmeritorious deeds. Well, actually, you won't be doing any meritorious deeds either. Still, you will have a duty. But in fulfilling your duty, you will not be committing any unmeritorious deeds. Only after you have become an arahant. Until that point, whether you're a parent, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, an engineer, whatever role it is you play in society. It doesn't matter what role you play in society. Whatever way you fulfill your duties and responsibilities, chances are you will find yourself doing either meritorious deeds or unmeritorious deeds. You can't. It will be very rare. I'll be very surprised if you can come up to me and say, I don't do any unmeritorious deeds, not even by thought. All my deeds are wholly, purely, 100% meritorious. I'll be very surprised if you can say that. This is why I say, there is no recluse. Nowhere in this world can you run and say, I'm safe here. Nowhere. The only place where you can be safe is in Nibbana. And that is why I say, get the hell out of here. So the only way to get out of here is if you understand yourself, if you study yourself, analyze yourself, and come up with a list of raga, dvesha, moha, as we talked at the beginning. These are the things, these are the defilements that keep you bound to samsara. So you have to rid them one by one. And that is what we use the Dhamma for. Eventually, when you have rid yourself, you rid your mind of all ignorance, all raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion, and along with that ignorance and attachment, now you're a completely free person. Now you can do whatever you like, knowing fully well that you're free, and there is nothing that can bring you, that can put you, into a bad place. What I want to explain to you, and really the gist of this is, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, don't think you're safe. You're not safe. Because for as long as you're in samsara, one, you're committing more deeds to take you in samsara, and two, you're just waiting for trouble to come your way. Because with every chitta that arises, that chitta has the potential to bring you vipaka of bad karmas as well as good karmas that you've done in the past. But if you put them on a scale, then chances are you've done more bad than good. Well, that includes me as well. For all the good we've done many million, trillion times fold bad. That is the risk that we have to accept. And if you're not happy with that, well, again, get the hell out of here. If you don't like the rules of the game, then what should you do? Stop playing the game. We didn't read the terms of the contract before we started playing the game. This is where everything started. We didn't read the rules of the contract. We didn't read the terms and conditions. Like when you sign documents off, not reading terms and conditions. And then if something breaks, tough, we told you so. Now you have no comeback. So anyway, we've already signed the contract. So now these are the terms and conditions, and they have been stipulated, and we can't change them. So the only choice we have now is, let's stop playing the game. This game of samsara. For as long as we are a pawn in this game, we are just waiting for trouble to come our way. What I'm saying, and what I said again by getting involved in samsaric, the reconciliation of samsaric transaction is, don't bring onto yourself even more trouble when you already have your fair share of it already. Don't ask for problems when you already have plenty. Because when you see something unfair that's going on out there, the reason that you're saying it's unfair is because that's how you see it. Because you're not seeing that this is justice being served. When did you last walk up to the prison and said, that's unfair? Why do you not think it's unfair for people to be imprisoned? If someone breaks into your house, right? Burglar, now he gets put in prison. Is that fair? Or is that unfair? Now it's fair, right? Because they've broken into your house. So, right, justice is being served. Well, it's the same goes for everything. Except you didn't see what happened before. You didn't see the event that led to the outcome. Therefore, based on our very limited knowledge of what we see, because all we can perceive is what we perceive through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body. We are not able to see what happened many eons before this. What did this guy do in their last birth? We have no idea. So therefore, all of a sudden, we think that it's okay for us to bring judgment on the things that we see out there. And then we get involved in things and try to sort them out. And in doing that, you try to change the course of natural events. When you try to change the course of natural events, you're asking for trouble. Because you know what? This world is always in balance. Good and bad. They say yin and yang. Right? This world is in balance. So if you don't like the fact that a guy is being beaten up, and if you want that to stop, guess what? Someone has to take their place. If you're the one who's going to stop that beating up from happening, chances are you're the one who's putting himself forward. Because that beating has to happen for that karmic transaction to be reconciled. That beating has to happen. Getting involved and trying to stop it from happening only means it's going to happen another day. So if you want justice to be served, then, well, put yourself in that situation and you get beat up. Save the other guy. It's pointless trying to serve justice on this world. It's pointless. It's pointless trying to make this world a better place. I tell you. There's no end to it. How many years have people, how many generations have people been trying to make this world a better place? But you know the state of affairs today. Has the world been becoming a better place? Or is it getting worse? I think you might want to turn the AC down a bit. People are feeling a bit chilly. Right? People are striving to make the world a better place, and it's becoming a cesspit every day that passes by. So we have to understand that trying to make this world a better place is a never-ending thing. It's never going to happen. That's not saying stop trying to do it if that's what you fancy. What I'm saying is, while you're alive, while you're a citizen of this country, right? While you're a father, while you're a mother, while you're a husband and a wife, do your duty. Do your duty because you're duty bound. Fulfill your duty. Don't leave your duties unfulfilled. Before I came and ordained, I fulfilled all of my duties as a son to my parents. Because I realized, I was at the age of about 28 when I came to ordain, and it was just the age when my parents, I had been on the receiving end of all the things that my parents were offering me, and it was just the time in life when I could repay them for what they had done for me all their life. So I realized, now if I go and ordain myself, then what have I given them in return? Of course, the Dhamma, yes, but for that they have to be ready to take the Dhamma. Until then, what they're looking for is other things. So what I did was, all the savings that we had saved up, right? So as a son, I fulfilled my duty towards them, and my in-laws as well. So that was my duty, and whatever was left over, I gave to the Shasana. Both my ex-wife and myself. So that was my duty. So this is not running away from duties. While you're in that role, fulfill your duty to the fullest. In fact, as an employee of the bank I used to work in, I became even more conscious about my duties and responsibilities after I received the Dhamma. If perhaps I might have taken 5 minutes extra during my lunch breaks, I realized that was wrong. To pay back for that, I cut down my lunch breaks. Not because someone asked me to, but because I wanted to pay back for all the 5 minutes that I had taken. I wanted to pay back because I didn't want to be left over with any debt. So I did as much as I possibly could to repay my debts. Why? Because I'm duty bound. Before I came here. And now my duties are to, 1, fulfill my destiny, and 2, to help other people get to where they want to go. That is my duty and nothing more. Now I don't have a duty as a son, or a husband, or a, whatever my job used to be. Those duties are now put to aside because now I can commit my life, dedicate myself to fulfilling the path. So while you're in a lay life, whatever role you play in the family, in society, fulfill your duties to the fullest. Fulfill your duties to the fullest. And in fulfilling your duties, be very careful that you don't do unmeritorious deeds. Because if you do it, you're going to have to suffer the consequences. You can't then say, well, I was just fulfilling my duties. I mean, I feel really sorry for some of the law enforcement agencies and some of the roles that they have to do in society. What can they do? What about if you are a soldier in the army? No? This is why we transfer merits at the end of every sermon to all those men and women who gave their lives up, did unmeritorious deeds on our behalf. It is thanks to them that today you and I, we can live in peace and harmony. But what did they do? Every life that they took, do you think that was meritorious? No. Well, you could say, what about intention? Yes, so they earned merit by serving their life for our freedom. That was meritorious. But the life that they took, that's demeritorious. That's a sin. And those sins are not repaid in the heavens. I don't want to talk about that any further because that will upset people. What about politicians? What about if you're the king of the land? What if you're an executioner? What if you're the president of the country who gets to decide who gets thrown to the dungeons? What if you're the president of the country who gets to decide who gets executed next? And it's your signature that determines that. Now? Well, it's your duty. So you can't say, I don't want to do it. Well, then you shouldn't be in the role in the first place. Then you shouldn't be in the role. Get the hell out. But for as long as you value being in that role, then you have to accept the package. There's nothing you can do about it. For as long as you like to have a child, for as long as you like to be a parent, for as long as you love children, you're going to have to fulfill the duties of bringing a child into this world. And if that's through punishment, then so be it. But I can't condone that behavior because, well, it's not my place to do that. So don't come and ask me if it's right to hit your child or not. I can't give you an answer to that question. Because you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. But what I can tell you is, hitting anybody, be that a child or anybody, is demeritorious because you're inflicting pain on them and you're going to have to suffer the consequences. That much I will tell you. Use that information and then you decide what you want to do with your life. This is why I'm saying, get the hell out of here. Because for as long as you're here, you're going to be stuck in this conundrum. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You're stuck now. Do you go left or do you go right? Either way, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get bitten. So what do? Get the hell out of here. Does that answer your questions? Imagine if you became the Sakradeva. Now, you have to rule over the human world, the Tavatimsa, Chatur Maharajike, right? You have to rule over all these kingdoms, human and divine. Now, whenever you see injustice, whose job is it to go and sort it out? Do you not feel sorry for him? Because now he's going to have to go and get involved in the reconciliation of samsaric transactions. And in doing so, bring unto himself the consequences of getting involved in such transactions. Because now he's just kicking off another transaction. There's no end to this. There's no end to this. This is a riddle. There's no end to it. That is why even the Buddha says, right, there's not a single point, there's not a single place in this world where I can say it's worth being. And he didn't even say that about being a monk. Even being a monk, the sole purpose of our existence as a monk is really to get the hell out of here. Not to be a monk. Not to be ordained. That is not my destination. That's just a journey. That's just a milestone on the journey. This is not my destination. Why? I'm still duty bound. There is not one single place in this entire universe you can say you're safe. Wherever you go, it's a conundrum. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So get the hell out of here. So how do you get the hell out of here? This is what we need the Dhamma for. This is why we talk about anicca dukkha anatta. Because ultimately, you begin to understand sabbe sankhara anicchati. Right? Because your intention might be to do something good, but ultimately, where does that take you? Ultimately, you're getting involved in worldly transactions. Now you might have to suffer consequences. Then you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. How do you get out? Of course, if your intentions are good, then you're going to receive good payback for that. But again, you beat your children because you want to discipline them. That's good and bad at the same time. You will receive the reward for the good and the consequences of the bad at the same time. So what's the answer now? This is where we need to understand what are we doing here in the first place. The purpose of our human lives is so that we can get out of here. That is what our human lives are for. The reason that we are here is because of our attachment. And of course, by now you'll know it's to Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. No matter what worldly things that we talk about in the outside world, ultimately what we are attached to in our mind are Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. And something I was thinking about lately is all these ironies just become obvious now, right? We talk about pleasure, yes? And pleasure is experienced how? Through relief from vexation. Do you realize that the only reason you can experience pleasure is because Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana are vexatious? It's funny to even think about it. The only reason you can experience pleasure is because they are vexatious. So the only reason, for example, that when you scratch yourself, it feels good is because you have a rash there in the first place. If you didn't have it, you wouldn't feel the pleasure of scratching it. Likewise, what does vexatious mean ultimately? This concept of udavima vayavima, right? Arising and passing away, udayanga mattanga. So we're addressing the question that was put forward as well. This is what we need to talk about more and more. All that stuff we talked at the beginning, that's to try and keep ourselves safe, so that we can dedicate our lives to practicing the path and not entangle ourselves, not ensnare ourselves in even more problems. Because enough now. Do you not all have enough problems in your life? If you don't, tell me, I can share a few of mine. Why do people watch teledramas? Because they don't have enough problems in their lives, right? So we know now that the nature of the mind is arising and passing away. And when the mind arises, what takes seat in the mind that arises? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. So in the meditation program that we had just a week gone past, I explained to them how, because there was a question about is the mind and Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana one of the, I think we talked about this in the last week's sermon. But again, just to remind you, just to refresh your memory, it's the mind that arises and passes away. And that's like the vehicle. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana are like the passengers. When the vehicle comes and goes, and as long as you're the passenger in the vehicle, you've got no choice but to come and go. Because you're a passenger in the vehicle. So when it comes, you come. When it goes, you go. You've got no choice about it. You can't come when it goes. You can't go when it comes. Because you're the passenger in the vehicle. So like that, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, they take seat in the mind which arises and passes away. All good with that? So this is the Udayangama Attangama, arising and passing away. It's through Udayangama Attangama that we have to be able to see Ashvada, pleasure. Because all this time, without the understanding of the Dhamma, without being able to understand that this is the mind that is arising and passing away, we saw pleasure as something that came from the outside world. So we said flowers are beautiful. Looked at a girl and said, hey, you're beautiful. Had a piece of cake and said, that's delicious. So every time we found pleasure in external objects, external things, in sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Because we didn't see that what brought us pleasure was the arising and passing away, attachment, then vexation and relief from vexation. We didn't see the mechanics of what happened beneath the surface. We didn't see beneath the surface. We only saw the tip of the iceberg. Not everything else that happened beneath the surface. All of that we were blind to. Until the Buddha came along and preached to us, showed us that, hey, what you see as being pleasure is ultimately nothing other than relief from vexation. And why do you vex? It's because you're attached to something that arises and then passes away. When you lose something you're attached to, where does that leave us? In vexation, in suffering. No one here likes to lose anything that they like. If you're attached to something, when you lose it, When it passes away, of course, that leaves you in a state of suffering. So because of this nature of arising and passing away, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, which take seat in this vehicle of the mind which arises and passes away, have no choice other than to arise and pass away. Are you all okay with that? All confident about that? Yes? Any questions? Because this is what we'll be contemplating on during the meditation program. So the next couple of weeks, this is what we need to really get the hang of. All that other stuff was putting the environment around it. This is the real solid meat of the bone. When their mind arises and passes away, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana have no choice but to arise and pass away. But if it's something you're attached to, now when it passes away, that leaves you in a state of vexation. And when you're relieved from that vexation, now you experience pleasure. So then tell me, would you ever be able to experience pleasure if there was no pain? If there was no vexation? No. Because that pleasure has to come from the relief from vexation. That relief would not be there if there was no vexation. This is why I said, the reason that we experience pleasure is because Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana are vexatious. It's because they leave us in a state of vexation, we are actually able to experience pleasure. If the mind didn't pass away, now would you be able to experience pleasure? Imagine the mind arose, and along with that Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, then it froze. It is constant from there. Would you experience pleasure again? No, why not? Because there's no vexation. It has to pass away for the vexation to materialize. Then you have to relieve yourself from vexation, and that's the point at which pleasure can be felt again. This is why we are hopeless, anartha. To relieve ourselves from vexation, what do we go and attach ourselves to? Something again which is vexatious. Do you see the madness behind this? To relieve yourself from vexation, you go and attach yourself to something which is yet again vexatious. Because you can't bear the pain when Rupa passes away. So what do you want to do now? You want to give rise to Rupa again. Isn't that also going to pass away in a moment? So a mother cries because she's lost her child. To relieve herself from that pain, what does she do? She gives birth to another child. What's going to happen to that child also? That child is also going to pass away. And then what's going to happen? Then she's going to cry again. And now let's have another one. Do you see how mad that is? Instead of ridding yourself of the attachment to a child, you keep your attachment, and then you suffer when the child passes away, and then you create another child, and then that gives you pleasure again, and then that child passes away, and then suffer again, and then have another child, and then pleasure because of relief from vexation. Where is the end to this? This is why the only treatment for this problem is to rid yourself of attachment. But people don't realize this. People think that pleasure is something that is really out there to be experienced. I'll give you a story, just to, really help this sink. It's quite a funny one, actually. I'm not saying this to make you laugh, but I think it'll help really sink the idea of what this pleasure is all about. One day, so there's a couple that lives in a house. The husband goes to take a wash. He's in the shower now. So the woman's going about doing household chores, whatever. So there's a knock on the door. So she goes to answer the door. Now she's a good-looking lady, right? In the conventional sense. Otherwise, is there a good-looking lady in the real sense? No, in the ultimate sense, there are no good-looking ladies. Sorry, ladies. But in the conventional sense, of course, there are good-looking people, right? So she opens the door and she's met by next-door neighbor. Some of you may know the story, yes? So she's met by this next-door neighbor. So this guy, he's always had a fancy for this woman. He's always fancied this lady, and he says, "Oh, can I speak to your husband, please?" and this woman says, sorry, he's in the shower, so I can't, you can't meet him now, but can I help you? And then he says, well, I'm glad that he's in the shower, so we have a private moment. Can I steal a kiss from you, please? So this man is asking for a kiss from, of course, his neighbor, the neighbor's wife, which is not a good thing to do. But he sees this opportunity where the husband's in the shower, so he tries to make use of this opportunity. And of course the woman, being a genuine wife, she says, no, I'm not willing to do that. It's very wrong. I love my husband. I'm not prepared to do that. And then this man says again, but please, I beg of you, please can you give me just a quick kiss? I'm not asking for much, just a quick kiss. And then the woman says, no, I'm not ready to do that. And then he says, well, you know what, I'll make you a deal. Here's 50,000 pounds, or rupees, or whatever, right? Whatever denomination you like, just apply that. 50,000 rupees. Can I get a kiss from you? Now she starts to think, actually, you know what? We're a little tight on money these days. So, 50,000 is going to go a long way. So, I'll take one for the family. My husband's going to be really proud of me that I've managed to find 50,000 rupees and all I had to give was a kiss. So this is what she's thinking. And then she says, well, how am I to be sure that you're not going to run away with the money after you've given me the kiss? Don't worry, here's the money. So he gives the money in advance and says, can you kiss me now? All right then. And so she plants a kiss on his face, and the man goes away, very happy about what he's been able to accomplish. And of course the woman's quite pleased with herself as well, because she's managed to earn 50,000 rupees for something as simple as a kiss. So the husband comes after his shower in a little while, and the husband asks, who was that I heard you chatting about to? And so, there was a knock on the door. Who was that? Oh, it was just the guy from next door. Then the husband says, oh, I'm glad he came round. Did he say anything about the 50,000 he owes me? Did you get it? This is what Ashvada is like. This is what pleasure is like. It's a complete gimmick. It's a lie. That money was ultimately, rightfully theirs. So that man had actually stolen a kiss, in the literal sense, because he didn't have to get the kiss to give the money, because that money actually belonged to this couple. But she was fooled. She was tricked into believing that this money is for real, and I'm getting all this money for something as simple as a kiss. Pleasure is much the same, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure is the same. Because you think you're getting something additional to what you already have, but that is not the truth. This is relief from vexation, which is reduction in suffering. That's all pleasure is. The reduction in suffering. If you were suffering 100 units before, now it's gone down to 60 units, well, you experience pleasure of 40 units. That is what pleasure is. It's not something additional that came from somewhere. That is what pleasure is. What a falsehood this is. This is madness. For someone to be so happy that they've managed to, if the woman is now, having heard what the husband said, now if the woman is quite happy about the fact that she's earned this money, don't you think she's mad? Anyone in their right sense, do you think the woman would be happy any longer? Having realized that she was just fooled, she was tricked. This was money that was rightfully theirs. She was tricked. Pleasure is much the same. A similar situation might be, imagine, right? You lend some money to somebody, okay? You lend some money to somebody, and then one day you have a fall, and you lose your consciousness. When you regain your consciousness, you've lost your memory. You've lost memory of the fact that you've lent money to another person. Now when you see this man on the street, he walks up to you and says, hey, You imagine he's borrowed 50,000 from you. But now you had a fall after the event, and now you lost all your memory. Now you've regained consciousness, but you can't regain your memory. And this man says, here's 10,000 rupees. How are you going to feel now? You're going to feel elated. You're going to say, oh, what a gentleman you are. Are you sure it's okay for me to take this money? Of course. Please take it. How generous of you. Well, I'm like that. Now that this man who receives the money might even feel like worshipping this person. Might even feel like God has just paid him a visit. This man has given me 10,000 rupees. And then he goes back another day. Here's another 10,000. Just because I'm a nice person. So this man's always going to believe that this person is a good person, right? He's a nice person. Because he's giving me money. But really what's going on? This is money that was rightfully his to begin with. It's a debt that's being repaid. It's not money that is being given for free. That's why they say there's no such thing as a free lunch. I know it's cliche, but that is the truth. There is no such thing as a free lunch. All you receive is what you deserve. Anything, whether that's good or bad. What you deserve is what you get, not what you want. You get what you deserve, not what you want, not what you desire. You get what you deserve, not what you desire. So now what's being repaid is a debt. If you regained your memory, are you going to be thinking of this person in the same way? Are you going to be worshipping at his feet because he's given you some money? No. Now you're going to go after him. Hey, how dare you fooled me? You made it look like you were the good guy when actually you borrowed my money and you took advantage of the fact that I had lost my memory. You are such a ruthless and bad and cruel person. This is how this person is going to feel now. Much the same like how you must feel about pleasure. This is how you should feel about pleasure. Not think of it as being a God-given gift. You must feel about pleasure in this same way. That this is foolery, this is tomfoolery. This is madness, this is lunacy. There is no such thing as pleasure out there. It's simply relief from vexation. Contemplate on that. This is what we'll be contemplating on during our meditation sessions. I want to give you this one example before we conclude, because I know we're not going to be seeing each other next week. So I need to give you enough material for 2 weeks, right? Or are you going to forget all of this the moment you leave this room? Like you usually do. Please don't be like that. Right? Because we're all spending precious time here. You as much as I. In fact, delivering a sermon is actually quite tiring. I don't feel it until the end of the sermon. Then I feel exhausted. Because while I'm doing the sermon, I'm just, it's just Dhamma keeps flowing into my mind, and then my mouth just spurts it out. While you're in the sermon, but after that, I'm exhausted. Usually I have a splitting headache at the end of every sermon. That's the honest truth. So after I walk back upstairs, I'm with a headache for about an hour and a half or so. But that's okay. I'm not saying feel pity on me. That's not what I'm saying this for. What I'm saying this for is I want you all to make the most of the time you spend here. So every word that is said, every time, every moment that we share together, make the most of it. Because it's valuable time that you're spending as much as my time. This is extremely valuable time that you're spending here. Time that you could have been doing something else. What did you used to do on your Sunday evenings? Lots of exciting, fun stuff, right? Now you put all that to aside and you've dedicated yourself to Nibbana. Great. Hats off to all of you. Absolutely fantastic. That is what you should be doing. But for that, you have to practically apply the Dhamma. Not forget it when you leave this room. This is why if I see someone nodding or falling asleep, I'm not okay to let you be like that. I'm not okay with that, because that's my duty. I'm duty bound to make sure that any time you spend here, you spend it carefully, you spend it wisely. Because why? You have come here and you have asked us, the monks here, Guru Hamdran Wahanse and the rest of us, to take responsibility of your Nibbana. So you have given us that duty. This is why you're here, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So we feel the burden of that duty on our shoulders. With that duty on our shoulders, we are not prepared to just simply see you fall asleep and say, oh, tough. I'm not okay with that. So I might kid about it, I might gesture, I might joke, I might even say something that might hurt you just a tiny little bit. That's only because I don't want you to fall asleep again. That's because I want you to make every moment of the time you spend here. So anyway, think about this example for a moment. Imagine there's a red hot iron bowl in your hand. A red hot iron bowl. Okay? For as long as it's in your hands, what's it doing to you? Of course, it's burning your fingers, it's burning your hands, it's scorching you. Can you bear this pain? No. You might be able to for a moment, but then after that you have to do something to rid yourself of this. Now tell me, there are two options you have, aren't there? Yes or no? What are the two options? One, throw it up. Two, let it drop. Yes? One, you can throw it up. Or even if you threw it away, again, you're just letting it drop. You either throw it up or you let it drop. These are the two options you have. You don't have a third option. Either you throw it up or you let it drop. Either way, you are now free from the pain. But if you let it drop, you are free from it permanently. But if you choose to throw it up, then in a few moments' time, it's going to come back to you. And then you're going to have to hold it again. And then what are you going to have to do again? Throw it back up or let it drop. Depending on which option you go for determines whether you are someone who likes to continue living in this world, experiencing pleasure through relief from vexation, or someone who wants to put a stop to vexation once and for all. You have one of two choices. If you want to throw it up, of course you will receive relief from vexation. This is relief from vexation, not redemption. We talk about pelima nidahas veema and pelima niruddha kirima. They are not one and the same. They are completely opposite choices. Pelima nidahas veema, this is relief from vexation. Pelima niruddha kirima, nidahas veema, or getting rid of it once and for all, extinguishing it once and for all. That's redemption. So it's not a trouble anymore, it's not a worry anymore. But if you decide to throw it up, what do you have to do? One, you have to conjure up the energy you need to throw it up. And the greater energy you have, the greater the energy you have, the higher you can throw this up. Of course, it's good if you can throw it up as high as you can, because then it's going to take longer for it to come back down again. But that requires a lot of energy. So the more energy you have, the higher you can throw this up. But of course, as you see it going up, you will feel happy, because now you don't feel the burning in your fingers. You don't feel your hands being scorched. But of course, as you keep watching at it, it's going to be a point where it's going to go and stop in midair. And now, which way is it going to go? Back down. Because gravity is of course going to pull it back down and back into your hands. And the moment you see it start coming back into your hands, how are you going to feel? It hasn't even come back to your hands yet. You can see it's now on a reverse journey, back down. From that point forward, you're going to start to feel that pain and anguish and frustration, because you know now what's inevitable. It's going to come back and land in your hands. Let's apply this to the Dhamma. You're holding this ball in your hands. This is pelima. This is that vexation that you have. We none of us like to experience vexation. There's no, that doesn't need a brain scientist to work that out. You don't need to be a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon to work out that we don't like vexation. Even animals don't like it, so you don't need human intelligence to work that out. There is one of two things we can do. One, relief from vexation. Two, redeem ourselves from vexation. Most people choose to go for the first, which is to find relief. What they do is they throw it up. They throw this ball up, exerting as much energy as they can conjure up. And once you've thrown it up, now you feel good because your fingers are not burning during this time. You can see it going up, all the way up. But at one point it's going to stop. All that energy that you had to exert to throw this up, this was sankhara dukkha. You don't like throwing balls up. Does anyone like throwing balls up just for the fun of it? No, but you are willing to do this because your fingers are being burnt. Your hands are being burnt. It's to relieve yourself of vexation. You don't mind exerting pain, exerting this energy. It's like nobody likes cooking. If you did, you'd be willing to do it 24/7. You shouldn't have to be paid. I mean, some people take up a job as a chef, right? So they say, "Oh, I love cooking." Well, why do you have to be paid for that then? Something you like to do, you shouldn't have to be paid for it. Well, you might say, well, they need an income. Okay, I'll pay them an income enough to help them make ends meet. The rest of it they must do out of fun, surely, because they like cooking. Nobody likes sankhara. That's why it's sankhara dukkha. But there's no choice, because if you can't bear the pain of this vexation, you have to do something to relieve yourself from it. And that is sankhara dukkha. Now the sankhara, with using sankhara dukkha, you've thrown this bowl up and you're watching it. At one point, it's going to stop. And then it's going to start its reverse journey. Now what dukkha? Now it's viparinama dukkha. It hasn't even come back down to you yet, but you can see it coming back down. From the point it starts its reverse journey, all the way down to it coming back into your hands, that's all viparinama dukkha. Because you can see jara. This is decay. Ultimately death when it hits your hands. Why? Jati pacca, jara, and then finally marana. When it comes back and hits your hands, that's the moment of death. In relation to the paticcasamuppada process. Dukkha dukkha, when you're holding that bowl, will I be able to throw this? Will I be, it's the uncertainty of being able to do something. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it. How far can I throw this up? Can I stop it from coming back down? All that uncertainty that is surrounded with this sankhara, that's all to do with dukkha dukkha. So dukkha dukkha, sankhara dukkha and viparinama dukkha, all here only for as long as you want to escape this pain by throwing the bowl up. One day you decide, this is just nonsense. Actually, you can't decide this for yourself. You need a kalyana mitra to explain to you what you're doing is nonsensical. Why do you bother throwing this bowl up when you have something so simple as letting go? How much energy does letting go require? Nothing. To throw the bowl up requires a lot of energy. Letting go requires none. All it needs is to realize, I have a much simpler option. Let go. Just move your fingers apart and the ball will drop, because gravity will do the hard work. You don't have to do anything. Just let go. Move your hands away and the ball will drop. You don't have to throw it down either. Throwing up, you have to do. Throwing down, you don't have to do. Just let gravity take care of that. Sir? Yes. Because you see this ball, because you like the pleasure that you receive when the ball is not in your hands. Madness or not. When the ball is not in your hands, your fingers are not being burnt for that duration of time. That is the pleasure that you experience. Because you like that pleasure, you keep throwing the ball up, and every time it comes back down again, now it's burning again, and then you throw it up, and now you're feeling that relief from that burning sensation for a short period of time. That is what you see as being pleasure. And now you say, can I have that again, please? I like that pleasure. Can I have it again, please? Well, of course, you just have to wait. Just be patient. and the ball will come back down, and all you have to do is just keep holding your hands. And the moment it drops, now throw it back up again. Do you not experience pleasure? Of course, that pleasure is nothing other than relief from vexation. Now one might say, well, I don't have any more pleasure when I let go of the ball. Some people have that problem also. People don't like to attain Nibbana. Why? No pleasure. This is akin to this man saying, well, if I let go of this ball, how can I experience the pleasure of my fingers being burnt and then being relieved from the pain? How do I get that pleasure again? Madness or not? Complete madness. This is why we need the great master to save us from our own insanity, to pull us out of our own ignorance, from our own delusion. And he says, just let go. When you realize that all this ball is doing is burning you and nothing else, is this ball bringing you any ashvada? A red hot metal ball, how much pleasure is it bringing you? How much? Not a modicum. Not one tiny bit. Where is pleasure coming from? When you throw the ball up, it's the relief from that temporary relief from pain. That is what brings you pleasure. It's not the ball that brings you pleasure. Much the same like it's not Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that brings you pleasure. But what do people do? They hold on to it. They cling on to it. That's why it's called the clinging aggregates. Pancha Upadana Kanda. The problem is not with the Panchaskanda. The problem is with the Upadana of the Panchaskanda. It's holding on to this. Then what you do? You can't bear the pain of it because of the passing away. So therefore, you give rise to the chitta again. But every time you give rise to the mind, again it's going to pass away. And then you have to, to get it to rise again, you have to do abhisankara dukkha. And the viparinama dukkha that comes with that. And the dukkha dukkha. All these three you have to be willing to embrace if what you want to do is find ashvada. If you want pleasure, you have no choice but to embrace viparinama dukkha, sankara dukkha and dukkha dukkha. You have no choice. That's why yadanichantam dukkha. If you want to experience pleasure, you have no choice, absolutely no choice, but to embrace, welcome with open arms, dukkha dukkha, viparinama dukkha and sankara dukkha. What did you ask for? Pleasure. What did you get? Dukkha. Futile? This is counterintuitive, meaningless. No point. You are asking for pleasure, what you are getting is pain. So why ask for it again? You are asking for pleasure, you are getting pain. You are not getting pleasure and pain. You are getting pain. Pleasure is nothing other than relief from the pain. Pleasure didn't come in a package. Pain came in a package. You threw it away for a temporary moment. That's when pleasure was had. This is why the only option really that's left is to let go. There is no other option that's left for any of us. Just let go. But you will only let go when you realize the truth. That's why I can't preach to you to help you rid attachment. I can preach to you to help you rid ignorance. When ignorance is being rid, attachment will follow suit. Remember, attachment is the result of causes. What is the cause? What is the cause of attachment? Ignorance. Seeing this world as being pleasurable, that is what ignorance is. Once you begin to see this world as being vexatious, sufferable, and futile, anicca dukkha anatta, now you are removed from ignorance, and in a state of vidya, wisdom, attachment will rid automatically. You don't have to do anything for that. That's why final bits of advice is, don't let go, just let go happen. Don't let go of the things you're attached to. Let the letting go happen. It'll happen eventually. All you have to do is begin to see the truth. When you begin to see the truth, the things that have to be let go, the things that have to be let go will be let go automatically. You can't get a guy to stop smoking for as long as he thinks smoking is good for him.
Take the guy to the hospital, get him scanned up, and say, hey, look, can you see the tar all over your lungs? It's smoking that's bringing you this. Oh, I didn't realize. Well, what are you going to do now? I'm going to stop smoking. You make him want it for himself. That's why I can't get you to let go of the things you're attached to, ladies and gentlemen. All I can do is help you to see that the things you're attached to are the very sources of your pains, are the very sources of your frustrations, are the very sources of all the problems that you experience. When you see that, when you realize that, I don't have to do anything, the letting go will happen automatically. That's why we are here to treat avidya. We are here to treat ignorance. Once ignorance is dealt with, everything else will look after itself. So simple. There's not a lot we need to do. Just reflect on the reality. See the truth. See the truth, and the ignorance will go away. And the attachment will go away along with it. Okay. So, just in conclusion, I just want to wrap up this question that was asked. When contemplating Udyanga Mattanga Mahashvada, if an unwelcoming thought arises, this is a moment we experience a hurt feeling. In this instance, how could we see and contemplate on Ashvada? So let me just wrap up with the answer to that question. So it's a very good question, because one might say, I'm looking at, say, someone likes the color blue and they don't like the color red. When I see the color blue, I get it. I feel Ashvada. Okay, but what about red? I'm looking at red. How do I feel Ashvada? This is how you feel it. What I'm about to explain now is very subtle, so if you don't get it, it's okay, forget it. We'll talk about it in future sessions. I've never tried to explain this before in English. I don't know how far we'll be successful, but let's try, because the question has now been asked. Beneath all the attachments that we have, there's the attachment to the self. All the attachments that we have on the superficial attachments, like sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, beneath all of them, at the very lowest level, is the attachment to the self, mama. It's to feed the self, it's to nurture the self that we bring in sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and through them, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Viññāna. Yeah? So far so good? It's the self that is at the most rudimentary level. This is what we are attached to, the self. The self can be sustained with any type of Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Viññāna. It doesn't have to be red, it doesn't have to be blue. It could be anything. For as long as it's Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Viññāna that is being received, the self can be sustained. I'll give an analogy. Your child likes to eat Marie biscuits. Okay? Is it just Marie biscuits that can keep the child alive? No. Any old food can keep this child alive, right? But this child likes biscuits. Whenever you get the chance, you give him biscuits, and then he likes it. But when there are no biscuits, or if there's a particular brand that he likes, let's say he likes Marie, he doesn't like Malibu. When he doesn't have the choice of Marie, you might give him Maliban and say, hey, we don't have Marie. If you want it, have this. Oh, okay, I'll still have it anyway. Because ultimately, this child just needs to be fed something. If it's Marie, then it's a bonus. But if it's not, I'll have anything. Another example will be, a man wants to get married. So he goes and finds a woman to get married to. He likes a dowry to go with it. That's a bonus. No dowry. No one's willing to offer a dowry. So would you not want to get married? There's no one out there who's willing to give a dowry. Do you not want to get married now? Oh, well, if I have no choice, I'll marry anyway. So the dowry was the bonus. It's getting married to the woman. That's at the most fundamental level, that's what he's looking for. But everything else is a bonus. So likewise, if it's red you like, that's the bonus. ultimately the mind just needs some kind of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana for sustenance. Whether it's from red or blue or green or yellow or pink, it doesn't matter. Because it's the self that is being fed with the arising of every chitta. If it's the color that you like, if it's the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that you like, then great. That's a bonus. But even if it's not what you like, still you have been given a chance to live one moment. The self has been given birth to for one moment, and then it passes away. Because the self is alive at that moment in time, either to attach or to get into conflict with. I have to be there either to fall in love or to fight. If I can't be there to fall in love with, well, I'll be there, I'll hang around for a fight. Still, I'm around. Most of you probably didn't get that, but that's okay. We'll talk about it in more detail in future sessions, because that's a very subtle concept. One I don't really like to talk about a lot, because then you have to have got a solid understanding of the things that we've been talking about so far before we approach this subject. But as the question has been asked, I can't not give an answer. I'll summarize it just one more time, just in case a second attempt might help people. The mind is always looking for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Okay? Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. If what you're always looking for is that, when you receive Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, you are relieved from vexation. It's a bonus if the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that you receive are ones that you like. A particular type of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, if you receive that, that's a bonus. If not, well, I'll still have it. Even if it's not the stuff I asked for, I'll still take it. If you don't have the ones I asked for, well, so be it, I'll still take it. Because ultimately, it's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that the mind needs to arise and pass away. The self needs Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. If it's pleasurable, then that's great. If it's not pleasurable, well, at least it was Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Because without those five, the mind wouldn't have been able to sustain one moment. That one moment where it arose and passed away, that moment wouldn't have existed if not for any Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't get it, we'll get it later on. Don't worry. Yes. So, if you're waiting for something you like, that's the moment of moha, right? So for example, let's say you like to see blue, or let's say you like to see roses. If the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana to do with roses come into your mind, then that's a pleasurable moment. Of course, Udavima brings you Ashvada then. Arising brings you Ashvada, because you're vexed for that Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, that I'll just call it the aggregates, and now you're relieved from that vexation, and that brings you pleasure, right? But that passes away. At the point of passing away, now you're back in vexation. What if you're waiting to look at roses, but you're shown daffodils? You don't like daffodils. Still, it's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Because ultimately, your mind just needs a way to sustain itself. Now the mind is being given rise to in the hope of seeing a rose. But actually what it's seeing ultimately is a daffodil. Still, nevertheless, it's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. So it's just been given one more chance to stay alive. The self has been sustained for one more chance. Again, now the question might be, well, at which point does Ashvada come? Does Ashvada come in the arising or the passing away? Because it's something you didn't like. Ashvada still comes in the arising. Why? Because you have just been given a lifeline. You have just been given a moment to stay alive for one more moment. Yes, it passes away. That's where the dvesha comes in, the two prongs in the trident, Trishula, the Guru Hamdana talks about in the sermons. We'll talk about that later. If I bring that up now, we'll be here for another couple of hours. Just a moment. So when the mind arises, if it were roses, great. If not, well, so be it. I still have been able to see something. If let's say you went blind temporarily, or there was an eye operation, right? and you were being treated for, surgery is being done to give you your vision back. Now, the doctor's taking off the bandage or whatever that's been put on your eyes. The ugliest person that you can imagine is now standing in front of you. Imagine you've been blind for a whole year. You haven't been able to see anything for a whole year. But while you could see beautiful people and ugly people. Now the ugliest person ever is standing in front of you. As the doctor removes the bandage, you open your eyes and you see this ugliest person that you can imagine. Does that not bring you pleasure? Of course it will. Because why? You wanted to be able to see something, and now you're seeing something. The next moment you'll go, ugh. But the first moment it was, wow, I'm able to see. Now you are picking, okay, I'm able to see. I like to see such things and I don't like to see these things. But before that it was, I just want to see something. Whatever goes, I'm happy with. Did you have a question, sir? Absolutely. This is baby Natasha that's asking to be fed. It's just the baby that's asking to be fed. Like this is what I said. If you can feed the baby what it likes, then great. But if it's hunger that we're trying to deal with, you can feed the baby anything. Anything goes. But feed the baby something it likes, it'll be really happy. Feed it something, it'll be happy. No, don't feed it anything, now it'll be really grumpy. Right? So the baby can be in one of three states. Crying because it's hungry. You're not feeding anything. Grumpy. He likes to eat biscuits. You feed rice. Okay. At least my hunger's gone. You feed it biscuits. Now, really happy. But ultimately, when you feed the baby, that brings the baby ashwada. Why? Because it's relief from hunger. That at the rudimentary level, at the most basic level, the hunger has to be dealt with. And as at the second level, feed the baby something it likes to eat. First, hunger has to be dealt with, and then feed something that it likes to eat. So that's why where the mind is always yearning for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, first give it something so that the mind can arise and sustain itself for one moment. One moment where it arises and passes away. Once you're able to satisfy that, now go looking for stuff that the mind likes to look at, likes to smell, likes to taste, likes to feel. That's the bonus, that's the additional stuff. Did you get it? Make sense? Okay. Don't worry, we'll talk about it in future sessions. Because it's a very subtle point. I used to have this question because I used to ask Guru Hamdro, I get the ashwada bit when you are seeing something you like to see, and you talk, when it's udavima you get the pleasure. So, if it's something you don't like to see, does pleasure come when it passes away? Or when it arises? That's the question I had. And so we talked about it and we got the answer. Whether you like to see it or you don't like to see it, ultimately this is a baby that's being fed. A hungry baby is being fed. At that point it doesn't care what it's being fed. Once the hunger's gone, now it's being fussy. Now it's fussy because now the hunger's gone. At this point forward, it's not hunger that it's trying to deal with. I like to eat certain foods, so please give me them. I don't want anything else. So hopefully that makes some sense at least. We'll talk about that in future sessions, don't worry if you didn't get it. So that's the answer to the question. So as a reminder again, there's no sermon next Sunday because it's New Year's. But of course you have something to do. Don't forget, right? Make a list of things you want to do in the new year. Don't forget to do that. And in that list of things, of course, you're going to have worldly things that you have to do, fulfilling duties, responsibilities. I don't need to talk to you about that. But I care about your progress in the path. I care about where you are. I care about how much you are able to apply yourself. Things that makes me happiest are when usually at the end of a sermon, someone comes and says, Swami Nuhansa, thank you for that sermon. That really helped me to unlock something. I'm making practice. I'm getting to where I want to be. These are the things that really make me happy. because I know that you're taking something away from these sermons and applying it into your lives. That is what is important. That is what is needed. Then I feel like my time here has been worthwhile. And your time here has been worthwhile as well. Because I know you're all very busy people. You're all important people in society. So the time you spend here is very precious. You could be doing other things. And it's right that you have dedicated this time to your Nibbana, which is the only really thing that's worth doing. Everything else is just blown in the wind ultimately. So make the most of your time. Start the new year off with a good set of goals. And among those goals has to be what you're now willing to do to change yourself, to rid yourself of raga, dvesha, moha. And all those animosities you had, all those resentments you had, all those festering wounds that you had in your mind, it's time to bid farewell to them once and for all. Pick up the phone, say I'm sorry. Go around to theirs, talk to them, say I'm sorry, let's just forget it. It's just water under the bridge. Please forgive me. Don't say I forgive you. They might not be looking for your forgiveness. Say, please forgive me. It might be that they did wrong unto you, but that's okay. Just say, please forgive me. It takes a great person to say that. Don't forget. You can test your character. You can test what kind of character you are if you're able to walk up to your arch enemy and say, please forgive me. That speaks volumes about how far you have come in the Dhamma. So you can test for yourself. So do you have enough to read you over for the next couple of weeks? To take you over for the next couple of weeks? Do you have enough? So what should you do now until the next sermon? Forget everything and go back to standard living and then come back 2 weeks later and we start from scratch? No, don't do that, because it's your Nibbana that you're sacrificing. Okay? So be very aware of how your mind works. Especially at the New Year table, you're going to have kaung, kokis and kiribat and everything served out. Right? So then ask yourself, why am I looking more towards the kaung? Why is that? These are moments where you're going to experience pleasure. Ask yourself, how is that kaung is tastier than kiribat? How is kokis yummier than alua? That can't be. It's just another taste. It's another sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. That's all it is. If I'm sensing pleasure, then of course you're relieved from vexation. And that's because you're attached. But don't talk about this at the table. Okay? When your children come and start helping themselves to the kiribat and the cow and the kokis and things like that. Oh, puta, are you vexing about it? I remember there's a time and there's a place. The New Year table is not the time nor the place. Okay? Okay. Right, I think do the Ara Maitri and close. Is it Sinhala at this time? Sinhala, okay. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo sansara dahayen midetva sansara rogayen midetva sansara bhayen midetva sansara ginnen midetva sansara anduren midetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen sukita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. මමද සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ රාග බන්ධනයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. ද්වේෂ බන්ධනයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. මෝහ බන්ධනයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. මාර බන්ධනයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. මමද සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ ජාති ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා. ජරා ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා. ව්‍යාධි ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා. මරණ ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. මමද සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ ශෝක ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා. පරිදේවයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. දුක්ඛ ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා. දෝමනස්සයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. උපායාසයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. යම් පිච්ඡං නලබති තම්පි දුක්ඛයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. සංකිත්තේන පංචෝපාදානස්කන්ධයෙන් මිදෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. කාම ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා. රූප ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා. අරූප ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා. සියලු ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා. අතහැරීම නාතයි අතහැරීම වෙත්වා. නොඇල්ම නාතයි නොඇල්ම වෙත්වා. මිදීම නාතයි මිදීම වෙත්වා. නිවනම නාතයි නිවනම 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 වෙත්වා. Okay. Let us all take a moment then to transfer the merits that we have all acquired today, and then we will conclude the sermon. I think you might want to turn down the aircon again. First and foremost, let us all take a moment once again to reflect on the fact that it is because of the supremely enlightened Buddha that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because of his infinite compassion, his infinite dedication towards his salvation of all sentient beings that we have the gift of Dhamma today. Let us also take a moment to remind ourselves of the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasika, Upasikas who protected and preserved this Dhamma, on some occasions dedicating and sacrificing their lives for the persevering to protecting and preserving this Dhamma and passing it down through the generations all the way down to us. It is thanks to their dedication and commitment that today we have the Tripitaka which we can study and comprehend and to help us redeem ourselves from samsara. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha, including the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas, who relentlessly make it their duty to protecting and preserving the Sambuddha Shasana. It is because of them that today I am able to be in robes and today you are in this room listening to this sermon. It is because of them that we have the Mahasangha who have been around for so long, giving us advice, guidance, and helping us to liberate ourselves from samsara. Particularly, let us take a moment to remind ourselves of the members of the Mahasangha who are resident in your local temples and nunneries, the Bhikshun Mahanses and the Mehenin Mahanses and so on. Although you are here today and listen to the Dhamma, paying your respects to the Mahasangha, do not forget for a moment that it is the members of the Mahasangha who are resident in your local temples and nunneries that who have always been by your side, helping you with questions in the Dhamma, as well as being there by your side in times of turmoil, as well as in rough times and in good times, always been by your side to help you, assist you and guide you. May they all also be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of those merits, if any of them have been today born in the woeful planes, they be able to redeem themselves and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmanas, spirits, demons and the dead that we invited at the start of this sermon. Anyone and everyone who might have been a mother, father, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephew, niece, and so on and so forth in this infinitely and endless journey in samsara. Anyone who might have helped us, assisted us, supported us in any way, shape or form. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they will redeem themselves from those woeful planes and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha who are resident at the monastery, including and chiefly Guru Hamdaran Mahanse, as well as all the other monks who are resident here, as well as the other Anagarikas who have taken great efforts to make your stay here as comfortable as possible. In decorating this stage as an offering to the Dhamma, as well as making refreshments available to you, as well as arranging the furniture and so on and so forth, so that your stay while you're here could be as comfortable as possible, as well as your listening experience could be as comfortable as possible. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as the members of the Dharmayai Obai Charity Trust. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the chief incumbent monk of the Sri Ananmatini Arame, whose premises they have kindly offered for you to park your vehicles and make your journey here as safe and comfortable as possible. May they all also be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Anyone and everyone who might have helped make this event a success, make this event possible, and contributed in any way, shape or form, either by being here in person or perhaps by sending out invites or perhaps by inviting you to be here today or maybe by ushering you to a seat or perhaps by giving you a glass of water. Whatever in whatever capacity anyone and everyone might have contributed, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits, they be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the living members of your family, as well as your colleagues and your employers, as well as your employees. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. It is thanks to them that today you have had the opportunity to be here. Perhaps they have taken on your duties and responsibilities to fulfill on your behalf, and therefore relieved you of your duties and responsibilities such that you are able to be here today and practice the path and seek your liberation. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits, they be able to redeem themselves from the woeful planes once and for all. May they be able to be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who dedicated and sacrificed their lives to protecting and preserving our motherland. It is thanks to them that today you and I can live in peace and harmony. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, be their friend or foe. If any man or woman might have been affected by the war, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to anyone who might have been affected by the natural disasters such as the tsunamis, earthquakes, so on and so forth, not just in Sri Lanka but also throughout the world. They may be friend and family or acquaintances, or perhaps they may be not your acquaintances today, but let us not forget that in this infinitely long journey in samsara, there is no one who has not been a mother or a father to all of us. So may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the men and women who have dedicated themselves to leading this country, leading our country, to developing our country as well as protecting and preserving our nation. It is thanks to them that today you and I have the freedom of time and the luxury of time to be here today and practice the path. If not for their dedication and their commitment, today you and I will have to be leading this country. You and I will have to be developing and protecting and preserving this country. May they be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the course of all the merits that we have all acquired today, in listening to this sermon, in preaching this sermon, in making the offerings that you have to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, as well as by making everyone stay here as comfortable as you possibly could by helping each other out, may through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arhatun Mahansis in this blessed land in our very lives itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may you and I and everyone who will have contributed to this event, to making this possible and a success, be able to become one of those Arhatun Mahansis, be able to become one of those Arhat Mehenin Mahansis in this very life itself and in the era of the Gautama, Samma Sambuddhana Mahansa itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. තුනුරුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බලයෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the noble triple gem be with you all forever. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.